Okay, thank you. This is Standards and Assessment Committee meeting, and we are so grateful you are all here today. My name is Jenny Earle, and I represent Northern Utah, which is District 1, so it's the whole top of the state. And we'll go ahead and let each of the board members introduce themselves. We'll do the ones here in the committee first, and then we will do online in just a moment. So go ahead. Vice Chair
Good morning. My name is Joanne Brinton, and I represent Southern Utah. The very bottom of Utah, I should say.
Good morning. My name is Leanne Wood. I represent District 4. That's South Davis County and North Salt Lake.
Okay. And then online we have Board Member Green. Do you want to introduce?
Yes, Emily Green. I represent District 14.
Okay. And Board Member Real.
Good morning. This is Sarah Real representing District 5. And I realize that we literally go from the top to the bottom of the state on this committee. I'm in Salt Lake County. Yep.
We're one of the few that's really blessed to do that. So, okay. We have, there is a bit of an echo going on. We're trying to figure that out, but we're going to. Okay. Okay. Let's start. We do have someone for public comment, or at least I have that indicated here. Edson Barton. And is he online? Do we have a person online, or is he in person?
Stacy McGinnis is the. Yeah, Stacy. Yeah. And she is online.
Okay. Who do we have then? I'm sorry, one more time.
Stacy McGinnis.
Stacy McGinnis. Do you have, are you online?
I am. I'm right here.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Stacy.
Hi.
We'll have about 2 minutes. We'll let you know when it gets
before
close.
She starts, can I just say Stacy was she taught my kids and is like one of the best teachers I know. She teaches at Crimson View Elementary, and she lights up the room in a class and just inspires students, and they love her and fight to get in her class. So I'm excited to hear what she has to say today.
Well, I'm excited to try to keep this to 2 minutes because I will do my best, and I do talk fast.
Yes, go ahead.
Today, I am here asking for you to pay attention to referencing line 133 of the grade level instructional time in classrooms. I support what the bill is trying to do, but I don't believe that kids should be on screens all day. But I am respectfully asking that the board recognize that kindergarten and third grade are very different levels in their learning. A 9-year-old third grader and a 5-year-old kindergartner are in very different places in their learning, and lumping them together under this rule does not fit the ability or reality of what a third grader is required to do. Third grader teachers do not waste time. We cannot afford to. Third grade is the bridge between primary grades and intermediate grades. The rigor is high, the demands are high, and we actually tell the kids, hey, now you're officially a big kid, and you're going to be using your computers a little bit more. Students are required to not only write a full paragraph essay, but they're also full paragraph, but they're also required to write a 5-paragraph essay. They're also required to do the Utah Rise, Acadiance Maze, and they're also required to do all of our Into Reading District tests on their computers. These aren't optional, they're mandatory. If they don't do well and they're not confident on their computer, they won't do well. Compared to my grandson, who is in kindergarten, and he mainly spends maybe 15 to 30 minutes a week trying to get his Lexia done on a computer. In my class, technology is purposeful and is limited. My students may spend anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes on Chromebooks, practicing math facts, short word, doing vocabulary things, doing tests from Scholastic News, and their favorite thing of the year is to write in their Google Docs. What I mean by that is they have to write a 5-paragraph essay, usually 4 to 5 times before they even get to that point. And if the kids don't get to that point, it is just straight all handwritten. That is the cherry on top for them. I am not into overusing technology, nor do I think any teacher in this state is a third grade teacher. And I know some parent groups are really concerned about this, and I understand that, but I would like the board to know that in my class and every third grade classroom I've ever been in, I have not seen this happening at all. I am simply asking you to give third grade their own set of rules, something between K through 2 restrictions and grades 4 through 6 framework. They deserve rules that reflect who they are and actually what they are required and mandated to do by the state. I would also invite any of the board members, I've talked to Joanne about this, about coming into any of the third grade classrooms, including my own, to see what we really are doing in there and how we're using technology. I know there's concerns. I know there's maybe abuse somewhere else, but I have never seen it. I come to you today to ask as not someone who's frustrated, but as someone who loves their jobs, loves their students, and wants to get this right alongside you. My door is always truly open, and I don't know of any teacher that doesn't have their door open to anyone that wants to come in to see what they're doing, especially in third grade. I invite parents, I invite the students, of course, are invited, and the board to understand that we need to find out what third grade really looks like as you go forth applying these rules to make sure that students aren't we want them to leave confident and successful. We don't want them to feel like that they're not really good on a computer, and because they're so limited in using it. And again, not to compare them to kindergarten or first. I used to teach second grade. These are totally different beasts when it comes to third grade. Third grade, we have a lot on the line. We have a lot more rigorous assessments that we have to do. And to have our students not be able to be really good on the computer in a purposeful and limited way is really sad. And I think it deteriorates from us as teachers and as what the kids can do in third grade. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate your comments. Okay, we are going to go to our next agenda item. The first item we have today is the standards review process. And so, do you know what? Is it listed different in the?
It is. It says physical education.
Yes. Nope. She. You know what?
Oh, this is May.
Yeah, it may be. That's okay. We'll go off the. We've got our thing pulled up here. Yes, I was just like, wait a minute, that was not the right. Okay, I'll put it right here. All right. So our first item is an information item. It's the P12 Physical Education Standards Revision Update. And so who's going to be presenting that today? Terry's online. Oh, Terry's online. Okay. Terry, we'll turn the time over to you.
Greetings, everyone. This is Terry Davis from the Utah State Board of Education. I am the Physical Education Specialist over PE and overseeing the PE standards process for the organization. So we are excited because we've had quite a few great meetings, thoughtful meetings in the standards writing team meetings. We have a variety of people representing various different areas from all over the state, but also various different grade levels. And they are using their expertise to be able to write all of the new standards that they would like to bring to you. Currently, we are working on a draft, and hopefully the draft will come to you. We're shooting for the August board meeting to be able to submit that draft to have it ready. We're working with the aquatics writing team and trying to catch them up so we can submit the standards, the PE standards, as a full package for your review. And so right now we have a draft that we are just getting ready to complete. We wanted to make sure that we had it written with fidelity and that we're making sure that we cover all of the things. So this next week we'll be reviewing as a review writing team. The team will be reviewing the current draft as it's written, making some minor adjustments, and then we will look forward to submitting that for the August meeting. So do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, I do. I am curious because I've seen a lot online about the Presidential Fitness Awards coming back and having some more rigor in physical fitness education. Are we going to incorporate any of that in our PE standards so that kids can be made aware of the Presidential Fitness Awards and strive for some of those certificates as well?
That's a question that everyone across the state has been asking me.
Could we just get ahead and do that? I'll just put in a request.
So we're not necessarily naming out the presidential fitness test in the standards, but you will find that PE teachers will find in the standards that there are elements of that test woven throughout the standards, and there's even more things in the standards. So we're excited about the presidential fitness test coming and the gold medal schools program coming. But also we're very excited about the standards because the standards will offer more depth and breadth in what we're teaching in physical education.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, anybody online have comments? Any board members before we move on? Okay, well, we're excited to see those. It'll be here just in time to start school and keep picking up. I think we'll end up with a whole series of standards all at once, it feels like, right? So
Yes. We
love that.
What is really cool is that we have members, we have representation from higher ed all the way down to preschool that are writing the standards, and they're adding their expertise and research and backing behind all of the standards that are being written. And so we will have the rationale also to go with the standards. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, because we have our wonderful higher ed people that are adding to the reasoning of why we're doing what we're doing. So I'm excited to get that draft to you. I think it'll be great for everyone to be able to see it and to know that when we are talking physical education, we're not just talking exercise. We are talking about learning physical education and learning physical activity. And so this is the plug that I want to say, is that PE is not just having students go out and exercise. We want students to learn why exercise is important. And so this is the part of the education part of PE is PE teachers across the state want to know what students are learning, and they want to make sure that students are learning about wellness and that they will be able to go out into the world and be able to keep themselves healthy and well throughout their lifetime, and not just have it be an exercise class that only lasts an hour.
Very good. Thank you. Okay,
Yep.
I don't see any other comments or hands. So thank you Terry, thank you for the update on that. And we look forward to reading those in the summer or whenever those get to us, okay?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right, our next item is R277334, classroom technology. This is a new rule for us, and sorry, I don't have who will be presenting that. Oh, yay.
Jennifer Wadsworth, I'm the policy advisor. So this is a new rule that is our compliance with the Balance Act, so House Bill 273. And I should let you know that we are currently working on the model policy that is required by this law. So you'll see reference to the board's model policy. We do not currently have that policy for you to view. However, it is in the works, and I know that Dr. Hunt is on top of that, and it should be to this committee hopefully by August or September. So basically everything in there is new. So if there's any questions as we go along, let me know the definition. So it mandates that our LEAs need to have their model policies in place by July of 2027, whether they choose to adopt our policy or create their own. There are instructions for how they need to go about doing that, but it does need to be in place by July of 2027. There are also requirements for their AI sandbox courses if they choose to do that, the technology requirements per grade, as we heard today in public comment. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, we do have Matt Winters here. We actually have a lot of specialists here who can answer all of the questions that have been working on this new rule. So I do have a few amendments that need to be made based on feedback that we received from LEA in-house counsel and some superintendents, just to clarify some things in the rule. But other than that, we're ready for questions.
Okay. Go. Who would like to go first?
Should I ask my question?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I have had some feedback on the grade level instructional and technology requirement section, and wondering if that specific section, instead of just laying out everything that's in the law, that section could be put in the policy, because they had heard, and I've been trying to get into le.utah.gov, and it seems to be down for the last 2 days to verify, but they had heard that as long as they had a policy that they could change some of those requirements, that they could adapt some of those requirements to the local policy. And I wanted to read the rule. I like to read the law. And
I printed them off. So is there a specific one that you wanted to? I think it's pretty much taken from the law, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So 273
Yeah.
does dictate that LEA shall, and then tells them exactly what
so
has
they
to be
don't
done.
have, because that's one of the selling points of that law, was that there's requiring balance, but that LEAs will be able to establish some of that balance according to the way they use technology. And you're saying that was not granted in the end.
Not my reading
Okay.
of it, but we
All
do
right.
have AAG Goff with us, and we also have Dr. Hunt.
Well, and I apologize for not being able to do some of the deep dive myself.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes,
I'm
go ahead
Amy
and
Hunt.
introduce yourself. And
Amy Hunt, Assistant Superintendent. One of the things that's interesting about this rule is that while there are a lot of shalls, there are also some places within the guidelines that allow us to be able to talk about, for example, what happens in third grade. So if you were to look at the rule and look at line 183, we are required to have level frameworks that are similar to the bill, but it does provide us an opportunity to be able, in our model policy, to provide additional instruction. And our model policy right now is focusing on understanding both the purpose and what's in the law, but then a description of best practices and how schools might be able to work within the guidelines that, well, not guidelines, but within the specific rules themselves. So
I think it's 133.
is it 133?
Not 183.
It's 183 in the bill, not the rule.
Okay, in the bill.
Sorry.
That's what I wondered, if we could talk to the bill sponsor, and because I've heard not just from some third grade teachers, but also district level specialists and superintendents that this third grade is a really tricky year because they are mandated to test on their Chromebooks, and we need to be preparing them for that. And as Mrs. McGinnis mentioned, they're learning to type an essay, a 5-paragraph essay. So to just say zero tech, that's not the balance that I think is needed for third grade. I understand maybe K through 2 should be handled differently, but third grade is this bridge year going into the older level grades.
they do have that. That's why when she said that, line 139 does say preparation for or administration of standards assessment. So it does allow for that.
So we need to focus on that, because the message going to the districts when they're looking at 133 is absolutely no tech. You can't use it.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we are trying to do with the model policy is
Okay.
more than just explain what the requirements are. We're trying to help provide some best practices and be able to explain how these things can be best utilized in a school setting. So it'll look a little different than a typical model policy, because it's going to give a lot more guidance around what the practice actually looks like.
Okay.
Well, and I think it does beg the question that is there value in handwriting versus typing? There's this,
Definitely.
so I think there is something to be thought of there.
Maybe the
even though I know
essays
we
should be
tested.
handwritten, but then the final draft could be typed in. I don't know. But I know we definitely have seen research that handwriting is so important to make those brain connections and brain development, much more so than typing on a computer. So I fully support the balance and having our students, especially in the younger grades, with pencils and paper in hand and books.
Thank you for sharing that, because it gives us an opportunity really to make sure that we outline those things in the model policy.
Okay.
Chair. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to clarify with Member Wood. So in terms of what is included in the rule, that is what will need to be included in the policy. So the framework for kindergarten through 3 does have to meet that code. Does that make sense? But other than that, just want to make sure that answer was okay.
Maybe you might want to stay right there. I just, don't move yet. We'll tell you when you can be excused here. So we got probably just a few questions. Are there other questions that board members have?
Well, I think I was explaining to one of the teachers, there were some questions about the prohibit required one-to-one devices, which can sound like you can't have one-to-one devices, but that's not really what it says. It's that they can't mandate one-to-one devices, right? Was I explaining that correctly to them?
Chair, may I respond, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So one-to-one device typically refers to a student taking a device home or having a device specifically assigned to them that no other student is using. So the idea is that one-to-one devices would not be appropriate if you were asking younger students not to be able to use them. That does not prohibit a student from using a device at school, right? And especially if, under the way it's explained in the law, if it's instructionally led.
Okay, and then in the older grade technology, like 4th and 5th graders, I did have a question about, it also says that about prohibiting the one-to-one devices and that they cannot do any homework requiring internet access. But in some of those 5th grade, 6th grade classes, they're learning to make PowerPoints. So is that now off the table? You can't learn to make a PowerPoint? You have to go back to poster board?
No, I think that what it means is that where you make the PowerPoint matters, right? So we shouldn't be requiring people to take home a computer and do that work at home, that it would be at school under the direction of an instructional leader who's helping make sure that people are learning the appropriate skills.
Okay.
Which is hard.
It is hard.
Yeah, I think there's, at least I'm seeing this trend nationally, but also in the state of Utah, just this idea that we've maybe oversaturated with technology and how to really make it so that it focuses on what the primary learning objectives are instead of just a filler, so to speak. So that's what I feel like. I have just a couple of questions. So on line 214, and when I went through these, so it says an LEA shall provide training to educators and staff regarding balanced instructional technology use requirements. And on 214, it says instructional technology expectations and limitations. Are we putting those in our model policy?
Yes, we're putting them in the model policy, and we are also going to create an example training.
Oh, okay.
That could be utilized if a district adopts our policy.
Okay. And we have a year. This is kind of like a trial year, right, where people can start into this and a year for full application? Okay, and then just down a little further, and you're probably going to say the same thing. I just wrote who by the side of this, age-appropriate instructional technology practices. Are we developing those? Staff are developing that? Or is that part of that model policy?
Yes, one question that we're still navigating, that we have navigated on this committee before, is this notion of what's age appropriate.
Yeah.
So we are, moving through that, trying to determine what does that look like and how do we put it in a model policy in a way that honors that every student is different and may not necessarily fit into an age appropriate band. But that is the work that we're focused on right now.
Okay. And I had two possible amendments. Let me look those up here. And then we had a couple of amendments, and then we'll continue to take some questions and such. So line 71, let me get to 71 here. We have, so on line, maybe I answered my own question. Never mind. There you go. Glad I looked. Okay, line 126. I have who does this go to? So let me get to line 126. And I think it's staffing. So when the LEA sends their, they have to send, an LEA shall submit to the superintendent the LEA's finalized policy and a statement confirming the LEA held a public meeting required in subsection 2. So this is that confirmation you did this. Who does that go to here? Who's going to hold that?
So we've discussed this a bit with our policy team, and it would be probably most appropriate to put it in the yearly assurances of a school district. Or at least,
So they wouldn't send, it does say they send it to us.
well, they would send it to us.
Oh,
We could
okay.
require that as well. But this
Okay.
isn't something that they're going to adjust every single year. So we're going to need that initial assurance. It would come into,
You're saying it would come as evidence that they're
Yes.
doing it? Okay. It's just not yes or no, it's yes, and here it is.
yes.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. One more. Let's see, 236. Access to educational professionals with expertise. Okay, who is this? So let's see, we're under, an LEA may provide accommodations or supports including, and then on 236, access to educational professionals with expertise in technology-related learning difficulties. And I'm assuming this is within the local LEA, right?
Yeah.
Who are we envisioning this is going to be? Maybe you don't know. Maybe they just are going to have to assign someone, but who
Well,
would
it might be
qualify?
different in each school district
Okay.
or each LEA, depending on their resources and the level of expertise they have. But many of our special education teachers and leaders do have some understanding of technology-related learning difficulties or have access to an understanding where to get the support or help they need.
Okay, so they'd probably just need to designate someone as our go-to person, kind of.
Yes,
Okay.
and the model policy we're writing, we have members of our special education team here at USBE that are helping us navigate this as well.
Okay, very good. All right, did you have some amendments you needed us to make?
Yes, so the first one is on line 252. As we were drafting, we were looking at, well, long story short, through was a placeholder. And if we go to the motions doc, we do have the affected code. So it is 53G 7228, and then also, what was the other one? 14, whatever the one is there. But we need to add these two and remove the word through.
Okay, do you want to make that motion, and then
Sure.
I'll just read it out?
I will make the motion to amend that the word "through" be stricken from line 252 and be replaced with 53D-7-229. Can't see. 53G-7-1402, and
That's it. The other two are listed there. So. Okay, is there any discussion to this motion or to this amendment? Are we seeing anyone online? No? Okay. All right, the motion is that we will strike the word on line 150 or 252, strike the word "through" and replace it with 53G-7-229, 53G-7-1402, and. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. And we have another recommended motion that came from staff. Do you want to move that one too?
I motion to amend Section 6, subsection 4 by adding a new subsection E that reads, refrain from using generative artificial intelligence to independently
You're good.
independently graded student work? Or grade?
Just
Independent,
grade. Yeah.
that doesn't read what? Independently grade
Yeah,
student work?
so essentially what we had in the rule is that, and what is in code is that educators are not allowed to use generative AI to independently grade a student's work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we just needed to make it a little bit more clear.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, that wasn't sounding right in my
Any
brain.
discussion to this motion? I'm not seeing any hands. Right. Okay. So the motion before the committee is that we amend Section 6, subsection 4 by adding a new subsection E that reads, refrain from using generative artificial intelligence to independently grade student work. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. And do we have any other recommended?
I had just had somebody send me a chart regarding the digital citizenship, but I'm not sure if this would be the place. And it was grading the different news And I'm not sure that was concerning, the way that it was placing different news outlets in either neutral, leaning left, leaning right, right, left, but it seemed very biased in the way it was presented. And I wondered where would be the appropriate place to share that chart so that we could look at that. Do we approve like what's in the digital literacy or citizenship classes? Like, is it coming out the next? Okay, so I'll share that late and bring that back. Okay.
But and I wondered if that's curriculum or if that's a resource that we provide. So let's just be, yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to the AI portion of this, we've already pretty much built out a framework already. Are we anticipating a lot of work on that? Or maybe just structuring it a little different? It seems like we've been in that space for a bit.
That's one of the nice things is because
Yeah.
we've been in that space, we'll be able to create and provide guidance around AI that we've already provided and that will now be part of that model policy. So thanks to the work of Matt and our team,
Yeah.
a lot of that work's already done.
Yeah, as I read through this, I thought, oh, we've got that already. So, yeah. Okay. All right, I think I'm looking for a motion for this document.
Okay, I will recommend that the committee approve R277-334 Classroom Technology Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Okay, any discussion? Oh, go ahead.
I do. I had one thing that I had wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
And it's in regards to the lower part of this rule where it talks about the AI.
Do you have a line that you want to?
Yeah, let me bring it up real quick. I'm so sorry.
Good.
It really just goes to, the news firestorm that's come with the AI contract that we just did with Gemini. Have we put this draft up against what we just signed with Gemini? And have we met the criteria there even with that contract? And how does that apply to what we've written here about the relationship with AI in the school setting? I'm just thinking it's probably the first quality check that we can butt it up against.
I don't know. Does anybody have that information or a response?
Yeah, so anything that we do when we're looking at policies, right, or we're looking at agreements with others, we are making sure that we're both acknowledging the AI policies we've put in place and the privacy agreements we've put in place. So nothing would have been part of an agreement if it had not been considered in alignment with those policies and agreements.
So when teachers move forward, if they choose to utilize that AI use in their classrooms, will they have been trained on this rule? Like, what does it look like on the teacher side of understanding, the ethics of AI and what we have in policy and rule? What does that conversation look like on the ground?
Yes, go ahead.
So one of the things that I think that we consider is that whether or not an LEA utilizes this particular programming is a local decision. And then it would therefore be their responsibility to make sure that if they determine they're going to use it, that they also would provide appropriate training and support for their teachers in utilizing it. But no one is required to use that technology.
Thank you.
Okay. And then just to clarify, on line 279, it just says it's the artificial intelligence sandbox courses. I guess that's the courses that limit the course to grades 9 through 12. I guess that doesn't imply that Gemini can only be used in grades 9 through 12. Is that correct?
No, I don't think, I don't think that speaks to a certain provider anyways, like that 9 through 12. Mm-hmm. That would be whoever the district contracts with once we have some standards set. So, but I don't know if that answers your question, if there's something more to answer to that.
I probably it's just understanding that relationship, with the Gemini in the school setting, and we've built provisions in for keeping it age appropriate and different grade levels we're seeing are we're separating those out. So I'm just, is AI able to be utilized in K through 12 at large, or are they isolating it to specific grade levels? And I don't know if
know. I
that's
don't know if Matt Winters, do you have any insights on that? You do? Okay. All right, Talia Longhurst is coming to the microphone. She said she has all of our answers.
yay.
I love it when someone has the answers.
Sure. Talia Longhurst, Director of Career and Technical Education. I may not have all the answers, but let me attempt a few of them. If you recall last fall when you were looking at some of our CTE courses for standard approval, we wrote, I think Board Member Wood, this was partially your idea as well as some of the rest of the committee, some very specific standards that will go into any CTE course, grades 7 through 12, that talks about AI. I know in digital literacy there is a little bit about ethics of AI, how to use AI, some of those very specific kinds of things. And then anything in grades 7 through 12 where we talk about and teach about artificial intelligence as part of the course, those same standards and even more in some cases will be included.
Okay. And I'm just, maybe this will piggyback on this just a little bit, but at the top of the document, when it says that the board will incorporate artificial intelligence, this is line 10, digital literacy, media literacy, and technology standards into the Utah course standards. That's actually just one course, right? That's that CTE course that is about technology throughout the grades, or is that
I
not?
apologize. Can you ask it one more time?
Yeah. So it's on line 9 through 11. It says 53E4202, which requires the board to incorporate artificial intelligence, digital literacy, media literacy, and technology standards into Utah course standards.
Yeah, so it will be more than one course. That's integrated in all kinds of courses. So I believe at least the earlier version of these bills, we have two bills really that kind of go hand in hand, this one and then HB 218, which is specific to digital literacy and digital studies requirements. So it requires more of a K-12 integrated approach than we've ever done before.
Okay, and so that framework, that AI framework is going to inform what this looks like. Is that an accurate statement?
That's a math question.
Okay.
I'm phoning a friend. A lot of those are in library media standards.
Okay, but the restrictions or the framework would be still, we would be using that AI framework that we have to inform those?
Yes.
Is that accurate? Mm-hmm. And if we wanted to change that AI framework, that might be the place to start so that it informs as other standards roll out, that it stays within those provisions.
Yeah, they have to work hand in hand.
Okay.
We can't go outside of that.
I don't know if that helped Board Member Green at all, but.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Additional questions? Yeah.
I'm noticing that we talk about in lines 282 and 283, maintain secure and controlled digital environments that protect student privacy and safety. And we talk about privacy in the training element, but when it actually comes to the section about artificial intelligence use requirements, we don't mention student privacy in there at all. Does it need to be duplicated, or is it the fact that it's in the training? But the very specific line item of 282-83 is related specifically to that sandbox course. Would it be appropriate to also put that up into the AI use requirements?
Go ahead if someone has the answer.
And could I just add to that, are we requiring, I mean, I know there's been this firestorm in the media and people worried about the Gemini contracts, which really shouldn't be a firestorm because this was about a privacy agreement requiring Google to come to the table and sign that they will not use our students' information to build their models, to sell the data. No money was exchanged. This was about protecting our students if the districts choose to use it, and the state has more power to sign a stronger contract that other LEAs can then sign on to, right?
Yes.
And I would assume that there are also lots of teachers who may not know and may just be having students go on to Google Classroom anyway without these agreements in place. So do we need anything stronger in here to educate our teachers to make sure that, because just by clicking on and going to a website, you're signing an agreement and you may be giving away student data without knowing it, that we want them to go through the privacy agreement and use the one that the state has signed an agreement with.
I would say I've been on the student data privacy working group, and Board Member Davis is on there with me for the last couple of years. And one of their primary things is to make sure that educators know you can't just sign up for something. It has to be, you have to have a contract, you have to have a data privacy agreement, and you have to make sure it's approved by your district. Now, I'm not saying that is a foolproof and people aren't doing it, but that's become the common narrative, and I've heard that over and over. So hopefully it's getting out there to people so that they're understanding just because something's available does not mean you can bring it into the schools. You have to go through a process and make sure that there's some kind of agreement signed so that we are keeping students' data privacy protected.
There's nothing that prevents the board from putting additional safeguards into the rule.
I see it on line 70, though, that you did put the line there. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Chair Earl pointed that out, so thank you.
And I had a bird tell me about it, so that little birdie. So, okay. Once again, do we have any additional questions before we go for a vote?
I just want to comment really quick.
Yeah.
I think, as I was reviewing this material, I think the difficulty is with technology is that it changes so rapidly. And the other difficulty is that we're not quite sure fully the impacts of technology on our students and the benefits of technology in our classrooms. And there is this balance that we need to make. And I think that I see this as a right now rule because that's the only way it can be applied. And often I worry, I think there's some purpose in putting certain technology pieces into code, but this balancing is going to be really difficult to understand fully until we have more time with technology and especially with AI. And so I just wanted to say that, I feel like this is one of those spaces where it's similar to looking at students' different learning styles. And the same goes that some students can really achieve well and learn really well with technology, and some students can't. So it's going to be really hard to balance. And I think that our public comment today was really great because I think there is so much use of technology that can benefit our students, but we have to make sure that we're balancing that. Is a law the great way to do that? I'm not sure, but I think this rule does a good job at least finding a place considering the current climate we're in. So.
And I think more than anything, it begins to ask the question, right? What is too much? What is appropriate? Is it educationally valuable? And I'm sure if you've been in the schools at all, you've seen both the correct use and the incorrect use, right? And so I think it's just more, for me, it's drawing attention to those concerns and kind of putting an exclamation point on it, saying you need to be more intentional about what you're doing. You just don't pick something up because it's there. So, any other comments? Oh, yeah.
Okay, I have a off the topic question here. Does any of this restrict the law or the rule in terms of devices for students with special education for when they're using, like when we have nonverbal students that have devices that are helping them with communication? I've just seen in some classrooms where we're struggling with people saying, oh, they can't be on these devices. That it's bad for them to be on devices, but then we're actually limiting their communication, and it's causing behavior and frustration.
Do you want to get it? I was going to say I can read the line.
Yeah,
it's in
the
here.
law has a line that specifically addresses the needs of students with respect to use of technology.
That 172.
Special needs, yeah,
Yes.
172.
Yeah, 172. And we can read it out just so public is aware. The instructional technology use consistent with a student's IEP or 504 plan. And that it doesn't apply to. So it doesn't apply to, and then that's the piece that goes with it. So people are aware of that. That's a good question, though. So, okay. I'm not seeing additional comments. So we're going to go ahead and if someone wants to move this forward, we did amend it, so it'd be as, oh, no, we already did that, right? Okay, we got to read it one more time so we can vote on it. So the motion before the committee is that the committee approve R277334 Classroom Technology Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, so there's 4 in favor and 1 abstention by Board Member Green. Okay, thank you. Our next item is high school course grading requirements, R277717. And Jennifer Wadsworth, are you presenting this one as well? Yay.
Oh, thank you. Jennifer Wadsworth, Policy Advisor. So this is going to be a change to our, pull up my thing, high school course grading requirements. This one is a result from House Bill 502. You're going to be seeing even more 502 amendments coming through. This one is in direct response to the citizenship grading. So as you know, teachers are now allowed to allow up to 10% of the grade to be linked to citizenship. If an LEA chooses a policy, it's up to 20%. So we've got some new definitions in there, but the majority of the changes are going to be at the bottom of the bill, beginning on line 97. There's a new section 4 specifically referencing citizenship grading standards. And we have Kathy Gray here with questions. We also have Megan Everett. Lots of people ready for your questions.
Okay. Do you need additional information on this? So let me pull it up.
I would love to understand the parent opt-out procedures, because we're talking about on-time, responsibility. What are our parents being allowed to opt out of?
Such a great question. So they are allowed to opt out of the LEA's policy to allow their students' academic grade to be affected by that. However, they are not allowed to opt out of a teacher's choice to include that. So if an LEA decides to have a grading policy that allows their child to have their citizenship grade affect their academic grade, a parent can opt out of that. However, if they choose to opt out of that, they also choose to opt out of the scholarship program that is available with that. If a teacher in their own classroom has a 10% policy, a parent does not have that option.
So is this written in a way that gives teachers the autonomy to hold students accountable for never being in class? And are we making it okay? Well, I just heard frustration from lots of high school teachers about being pressured from administration on graduation and passing students who've maybe never shown up in class and have not done their work, but gosh, we just need to let them graduate. I think proficiency and whether they were in class and did the work and have the competency and knowledge should be more important than a graduation percentage.
Yeah. I believe, and after speaking to Representative Welton, his intent is to try to mitigate that, right? That part of getting your degree is also learning those durable skills that you have to show up to work on time, you have to be able to. So I know that that's what this is seeking to fix. However, we do allow our LEAs to have that autonomy to decide if they want to implement that. And Representative Welton went a little step further, saying that's fine, an LEA can choose that, but a teacher also gets to make that decision. So yes, I guess is the answer to your question.
All right. I'm going from line 110. So attendance, that's easily measurable. Meeting deadlines, that's easily measurable, right? Did it come in on time? Was it right? 112 is not measurable at all, and I don't know what that means. Class participation and personal engagement. So that's whatever the educator decides on that. And we're telling them it has to be, that shall be part of their criteria. Is that in law that piece has to be there?
It is, yeah. So we can pull it up really quickly.
And are they defined as durable skills in law?
They are.
I wonder if that's partly like group participation and collaboration, teamwork, being able to work with other classmates. A skill that's really beneficial as adults.
Yeah, but really hard to measure, and
Right.
depending
Well,
on
but
whose group you're in.
Well, I mean,
I'm just saying.
I have group assignments in my classes, and I can tell which students are putting in effort and working well with the other students, and which ones are just sitting there, or not participating, or not engaging with their group mates on the project. And so, there are rubrics that make it really clear on saying like this person participated, and they also have options for students to give their group members, scores as how they participated with the group as well.
And I'm not questioning the validity in that it's valuable to be able to engage with others. What I'm saying is but it's in law. Is the effective communication in law too?
So after speaking to Representative Welton, what he was wanting to do is align it with skills that would be used in the workplace. No matter what a student's job was, these are the things you'd need. You need to show up, meet your deadlines, personally engage with your coworkers, and be able to effectively communicate.
Okay, can someone talk to us a little bit about the scholarship piece? That money, where's that coming from? What does that look like?
It is coming from voluntary tax contributions.
Okay, so that would fluctuate. So if someone is going to get a scholarship, quote unquote, from the voluntary tax donations, we don't really know what that scholarship is.
It will fluctuate.
Okay, and who will make those decisions?
It's tasked with the board. So we will.
Okay.
USBE will.
At some point.
Yes. Yes.
Because there's no money in that account right
No.
now. Okay.
But the only way that an LEA can participate in that is if they have a policy that includes citizenship grading. So an LEA cannot ask for the scholarship to be offered if they don't have that policy in place.
When there's a scholarship. Okay, if there's a scholarship. Can they renew that every year if they choose to be part of that?
If an LEA wants to be part of the scholarship, they just have to have that policy in place. So if they have the policy in place and there is money available, then they are eligible. But if they do not have a policy in place, they have to get it before they can apply.
Okay, one other question. Is this impacting college? Scholarship, yes, but college, going into college, are we seeing, there's nothing in there about that, right? No. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. There was discussion in the committee, and I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it, of course, will relate to students who are applying for college if they have a citizenship grade that is not where they want it to be. I know that there are scholarships that are linked, that are not the state scholarship, but other scholarships that are linked to citizenship grades. It would, of course, affect that, but that's always been the case.
Okay.
I have a quick question as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is on line 126. And if I'm understanding this correctly, the LEA is the one that has to establish the procedures for parent opt-out requests. We're not going to build like a model policy for that. That's something that will come from the LEA.
That's correct.
Do they have a timeline on that or a deadline?
In terms of when they can opt out?
No, just when that's going to be developed, I would assume.
Oh, I believe it comes in, it's part of their policy. So part of the policy is how the parents can opt out.
So when they establish a citizenship grading policy, they would have to include this in
establish the opt-out, correct.
Is that, will that be approved by local boards, or is that more administrative district level in-house work?
I'm so sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, Member Green.
No, you're okay.
So if they establish a LEA-wide policy, it does have to be done following their procedures to establish a policy. Open and public meetings, all of that would apply.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, are there additional questions on this one? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
I will recommend that the committee approve our sorry. I recommend when I can read it.
It's right here.
Okay, thanks.
We got it right here. You can pull it up, but we've got it. So.
Okay, I recommend that the committee approve R277-717 high school course grading requirements draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that the committee approve R277717 high school course grading requirements, draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that passes unanimously. And our next item is the child sex abuse and human trafficking instructions material approval. Welcome. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves? Oh. There we go.
Good morning, I'm Tanya Albornoz, Coordinator for Prevention here at USBE.
And I am Mindy Elliott, Child Sexual Abuse and Human Trafficking Prevention Specialist.
Okay, very good. I don't know if others have, I'm looking for my notes. I had just a couple of, some of these are just basic cleanups. I hope I can get the right documents right. Okay, I believe this is on the first one. Vector, is Vector the Venture Safe Schools? Is that the one that comes up as Vector? Okay. I have just a couple of comments that are probably just cleanup things. Under the tips for posting, it says, it has these parentheses, and it says sextortion, and then it has a comma, remove revenge porn. I think we use sextortion in the state of Utah, and I think someone put a note in there indicating to remove that. So that probably doesn't need to be part of the text. And maybe it's not in the, do you know what I mean? Or maybe they need to just make sure that language is consistent, because we really don't use revenge porn. In our laws, it is sextortion. So if it's in their script, it probably needs to be updated. And they have it actually in there to remove that. So anyway, so it's under the tips for posting. STK 12. It didn't have a page number, so I'm sorry. It's under their thing. At the end of this document, I think this is the one. This is the one that I think it must have come from Ohio, but it has all the Ohio references, like the Ohio Department of, right, the Ohio this, the Ohio that, and I'm like, oh, I probably should say Utah. So their references are child prevention references need to be updated so they reflect the state of Utah.
You said Ohio?
Ohio, yeah. Okay, that's what I have on the first one. I don't know if others have any feedback on Venture, Safe Schools, human trafficking. The other note, which you can pass this along, is that the warning signs one for Vector was really well done, I thought. Whatever they did with warning signs, and now it's been so long, it's been a week, almost a decade since then, but I just put a note in there that I thought that was extremely well done. So, okay, that's what I have on 24850. Do others have anything under that particular item? Okay.
So Chair Earl, just a question. Are you wanting us to go back to the vendor and provide these suggestions?
You're going to need to, because if it doesn't have Utah's content, it's not, why would we, right, when I say Utah's content, like the resource page, right? I mean, they're going to have to update that. So yes, do you want a formal motion for that? Okay.
That's up to the committee.
What does the committee want?
Yeah, let's make a formal motion.
Yeah, we can do a formal motion and then, yeah, we can.
Well, I felt like the material was really well done, and I wouldn't want to hold approval. So is there a way, does it?
Well, I would want those updated is all. So we can make a motion that they update those and that for next month when it comes to this full board.
Right, and that's the way we've done it in the past, is just recommended approval pending these changes, and then we make sure that they make those changes before we go to board.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Okay, so let me just make a formal motion. Who's typing it? Okay. We check under the section tips for posting, and that it remove revenge porn and put sextortion, which is the language we use in Utah in our law. Okay, so make sure that's updated. And then on the resource page, oh, sorry, can I go a little faster than that?
Okay, I'm sorry. Revenge porn be replaced with
sextortion.
Okay.
I guess I don't need to look at you. I can look here, and then I can tell how fast to go, right?
Look at all my mistakes. Okay, go ahead.
And then the second piece would be that the resources reflect Utah's resources and not Ohio's. And I'm sure that you guys probably already have that, or the health department or whatever, so.
Correct. It's actually in the minimum standards, so.
Oh, okay, okay.
Does that look right?
Let me see. Yes, and let's also just put the reference number. So it's 24850, 24850, so we've got the right.
Yeah. So
Yeah. In 24850, that's the reference number. Yep. Yep. Any additional comments then?
No, I thought it was just that I thought it was really well done. So I guess, yes.
Okay, let me go ahead and put that motion out there for us. Move that the curriculum 24850, under the section tips for posting, the words revenge porn be replaced with sextortion, and the resources reflect Utah's resources, not Ohio's. And then we need to probably put at the end of that, and move to the board, full board for approval. Okay, let's do the amendment. This is kind of, is this an amendment maybe? I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it is. Okay.
We can.
Yeah, let's just move this one forward, and then it just pending, and we can put that pending changes, it will be brought to the full board.
Okay.
And I already take. Yeah. Pending changes, okay. These changes, yeah. There you go. Does that look anything? Okay, you're clear what needs to happen there and stuff. Okay. All right, so before we're moving this before the committee, that the committee, that in curriculum 24850, under the section tips for posting, the words revenge porn be replaced with sextortion, and that the resources reflect Utah's resources, not Ohio's, and forward to the full board for approval pending these changes. Okay?
Can I clarify if that the wording where it says and forward to the full board for approval pending these changes, does that mean it comes back to committee, we approve it and then forward it, or they will we know that it's been changed first and then they'll forward it? What?
Previously, what we did is once it was changed, staff had sent the materials and the changes to us so that we would be aware of those prior to the next board meeting. So as soon as those become available, that's what we've previously done. So I don't see holding this up as long as we're, you know what I mean, as long as they're able to make the changes prior to the next board meeting.
Okay, so we can expect that same action. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Deputy Superintendent Leah Voorhees, we could make a document for you that would, as soon as the changes are made, that would document that they were done. So it was really easy and clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's what we'll do. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Board Member Green, did you vote?
Yes, I said aye.
Okay. My apologies. I don't know if it cut off when you. Okay. That passed unanimously. Okay, the second item we're on to is 24846, On Watch, Combating Trafficking Through Education, Adults Serving Youth. And any comments on this one? I had a couple.
I just wanted to say that the new draft is great, Megan. Or wait, sorry, we're not on the next agenda item.
No, we're still we've got two more items in this one. But that's good. We'll probably recognize you twice on that one, Megan, if that's okay. Okay, this is going to be, I'm not sure how to find this, but you can search this. We referenced Sean Reyes. He's not the Attorney General anymore. If we could maybe either update it or word that so it just says Attorney General and not actually a name. And I had to scan it. I actually wasn't able to get a hold of the video, so I had to read the whole document, if that makes sense. So just scan the document and just make sure wherever that is that it's somehow updated so it's current. The other question I had is it references disassociation. This is not a settled science. And that was just one piece that I just kind of had a question around if it's an accurate representation. So maybe, I don't know who the whoever this is, maybe ask them if they can provide some better research or something. The disassociation has some really, it's kind of I don't know, it's not settled science, I guess I should say. So, I don't know if it's video. That's the thing, is I don't know where, because I wasn't able to watch the video, so I don't know how that sits in the video.
I don't remember that standing out in the videos when I watched them. And I went through both. I thought this was a curriculum that was well chosen and really well done. It provided different scenarios that a lot of our children face and red flags to look for and how to help. And it ends on hope and healthy relationships and healing. And I really appreciated that, because this is sadly something that I don't know that there's any family that it hasn't affected. If you look at cousins, aunts, uncles, it's with the widespread pornography all over that online has allowed to just be such an epidemic. This is a fallout. So I appreciate that we're educating our students and giving them tools.
Go ahead.
So Chair Earl, I'm wondering if would you want them to submit to you research? Would you want just to
I don't know that
submit to them a
research would
question?
suffice, quite honestly. Maybe I need to go look and watch the video.
I don't see it anywhere, like, as I'm just looking at the transcript too, where it stands out as something highlighted.
Okay.
And when I watch the videos, I think, isn't that like a protective mechanism that's in the community when something's super painful, you do like kind of put up blocks? Isn't that what disassociation is?
That's what I'm saying,
right?
it has its positive uses, but it's also been misused too. So, do you have a comment on that? Oh,
I was just going to say, it is a
video.
term that's fairly common within the world of mental health, and I'm just wondering what
I right now don't
direction
do
we can-
anything with it because I don't have enough information to do something with it. So, like I said, I couldn't watch the videos. I don't know. Maybe I've got to see if someone can help me get on those. I couldn't, for whatever reason, I couldn't figure out how to do that. So mine was reading, and maybe just that it wasn't. It's a possibility, not an emphasis. Does that make sense? So maybe it's not.
Yeah, and I would be happy to look at that with you and help make sure
Okay,
you
so
have
maybe
access.
after our meeting, I can meet with you and see if I could do that. Okay. That's all I had on that one. I did think that the situations were presented in, gosh, I don't know, one of them kind of kept me up at night, to be honest with you. But it's the real life kind of situation that took place. So I think just drawing attention to that. And I think I'm just appreciative of this board and the legislature over the last maybe 5 years that we put structures in that when we're getting materials now, we're getting such quality materials that we don't have pages and pages of concerns, right? It's one, two or three things that we can look, you know what I mean, that we look at or whatever. So credit to, I'm sure everybody here has worked hard on that. So we've really got the best quality materials coming before us or not coming before us because they didn't meet the criteria, right? So thank you. Okay, I'm looking for a motion on this one.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that
It's the second one there. You can just move it to the full board, but.
I move that the committee approve the child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention instruction materials 24846 on watch, combating trafficking through education, adults serving youth, and forward to the board for final approval.
Chair, can we clarify?
Yeah.
Did you, sorry, Deputy Superintendent Voorhees, did you want the replacing Sean Reyes with Attorney General in the motion, or did you just want?
I don't know if it's in the video. Do you see what I'm saying? So I don't know if it's something.
In the video, because that was the current Attorney General at the time.
Because I was reading the transcript, so it's hard to, do you know what I mean, know how that played out.
So I would be happy to reach out to the organization and request that they update that Attorney General piece.
I think as I listened to it, that's who the Attorney General was at the time, and that's who they were working with. And so they were just giving him credit. So I don't think it matters.
And maybe it doesn't matter. All I'm saying is I read the transcript. So
while he was Attorney General, this was a big part of what he worked on. So,
and I
don't
reach
think
out
it
to the
matters.
organizations regardless, and so I would be happy to pass along that and just make sure that we're
just to have them
clarifying.
view it to see if there's anything that may be off on that or something. And
I
if
will be
not,
happy to do that.
I'm fine with that. I thought the content was spot on. So, okay, so we're going to leave that just vague. And so, okay, all right. So the motion before the committee is that the committee approve the child sex abuse, human trafficking prevention instructional materials 24846 on watch, combating trafficking through education, adult serving youth, and forward to the full board for final approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. And then our last one is 24852, education to protect K-6 abuse prevention, elementary student child sexual abuse, and forward to the book. Okay. On this one, and I sent that email, and did you get a chance to watch it? Do you have some feedback? And we can give some public, I'm trying to find my email that I sent so that people have a reference. So in this particular, it was the third grade module, or the third module, I don't know if it's third grade. There's some confusion because you see an adult male putting his hand on the shoulder of a child, and that you can tell it was a adverse kind of, don't touch me kind of thing. And then very next frame you see another individual putting a hand on the shoulder, but then I don't know, it seemed to send some mixed messages, but yeah.
Would it be all right if I provided a little bit of feedback?
Yeah, would
on
you?
That? Okay.
Yes.
So the same with, they do the same. They talk about hugging, they talk about touching, and they do show both of those images. And I believe that it's very important to distinguish the difference between which, if you read the script that goes along with it, they do have conversation about what is okay and what is not okay when it makes you feel uncomfortable. And I do believe that is real life. Sometimes somebody can touch you on the shoulder and it's comfortable. And then sometimes somebody could also do that same action and it is uncomfortable. And they talk about through those feelings and that uncomfortable feeling, and then how to appropriately respond.
So did you coordinate so you're saying you took the script with the video and that you felt like the explanation was...
Right. Okay. And I did as well. I would just say after you sent the email, I watched the video again and read the script. And I appreciated going back through it. But I'm confident passing it on that our children do need to be armed to understand it's the feeling inside. Learning to tune into that inner voice that says something's off here is what will keep them safe. And I think how the script is handled with the video, because yes, the same action coming from different people with different intent can mean different things. And learning to tune into that inner voice, and third grade is a key year for that, I think was well done.
I'll back the script up with it over the next month then and look at that. The only other question I had on that had to do with the language of inspection. I've never seen that used.
And I actually appreciated that they included that, because that is sometimes something that we see when we do have sexual abuse, right? They're showing private parts or inspecting private parts, and along those same lines, like sometimes it is appropriate to inspect something, and I did appreciate your feedback and your opportunity for me to think through this a little bit. And when she said inspect this doll, like sometimes it is appropriate to inspect things, and sometimes it is appropriate to do like the talking and the touching like we talked before, and then sometimes it's not. And so I appreciated that conversation that did come along with the script, along with that video piece, because yeah, sometimes I'm looking at something and inspecting it. Sometimes when I'm looking at something and inspecting it, it is inappropriate, and it just goes along with those feelings and helps distinguish those okay situations and those not okay situations.
Okay, you felt like that it kept that within the okay.
I do.
Okay, those were the only ones I found there on those particular ones. So, did anybody else have any comments on those? Okay, all right. I'm looking for motion on the final one.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the committee approve the child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention instruction materials 24852, education to protect, K through 6, abuse prevention, elementary student and child sexual abuse, and forward to the full board for final approval.
Okay, any additional comments? All right. Okay, so the motion before the committee is that the committee approve the child sex abuse and human trafficking prevention instructional materials 24852, education to protect, K through 6, abuse prevention, elementary student, child sex abuse, and forward to the full board for final approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that one passes unanimously. Okay. And I'm actually going to say we're going to take an 8-minute break. All right, we're going to go ahead and start back up. Thanks for letting us take just a little bit of a break. It's kind of nice to do that occasionally. All right, we are on item 3.6, standards review process. And we've been working on this for a little bit, right? A lot of discussion. There's the code associated with this this next year looks like they're considering it for sunsetting. Am I right in saying that? That is the code piece?
Some elements.
Just some elements. Yeah. Okay, so there, I mean, if whatever we change here, we'd need to kind of engage with some legislative things going on. So that's where we need to just keep that in mind. Any board members have comments before I kind of put some recommendations out there? Go ahead.
Thank you for your work on this. Appreciate it.
That's good. Okay. Hopefully I'm looking at the right one. Did you do anything more? It's the May 18th, 2026, right? Or is there something more that I'm?
There's the June 5th. That's one.
Okay.
I actually was looking at that one, the wrong one yesterday too. So, what I wanted to point out is we discussed last time kind of like so I was talking big picture about adding what you call them here, lead liaisons. And I was talking big picture about having those people, and then we kind of went back and forth on trying to understand how that would work with internally with USBE staff and how they're picking them and how like their requirements and stuff. So I think that lead liaison section is great, and I think it outlines everything that we've talked about. So I wanted to point that out. And then the only other part that I was thinking about in this was when it comes to, okay, so I feel like in my 4th year on standards now, I feel like we had changed this process to allow for board member review. And then I think at the time that made sense, just to put that out there. But now with the review process, can you just kind of like do it like a top level, how that works? And is there still a board member review process, or is that combined with the public process? Because now that I'm thinking about it, even though we've changed it, I wonder if it's worthwhile, Member Earl, and I don't know if you have any opinions about that, if it's important to have a separate board member review time to submit comment and feedback, or if it could just be lumped in with the public feedback time period.
I'm going to make a suggestion.
I knew it. Okay,
No.
so
I'm going to make a suggestion, and I hope everybody's okay at this. For some reason, I did not actually pull this document up and look at it, and I apologize. I printed off the May, and I began formulating, and I just owe you an apology because now I'm like, oh, I'm not on the same page. Does that make sense? Like I've got things and I've got this. And is it okay if we shift this to the last discussion item and then pull it back up? Is that all right with everyone? So that I have time to kind of at least read through it so that we're kind of on the same page. We're not having to, does that make sense? Would you mind? And then we'll go to the library policy and the special ed recommendations and then pull that up at the end, trying to still give us a good 20, 30 minutes for the discussion so I can at least kind of skim through it. But go ahead.
Well, I just wondered for the discussion if you wanted Megan to go through an
actually,
overview.
maybe, Megan, do you want to just go
tell
through it
us
real quick
about
and
the
then we'll.
Because then the public knows as well
Yes.
what we're looking at doing and changing.
For sure. Megan Everett, Director of Teaching and Learning. And are you looking at the one that says standards revision process concurrent committees? Or
I think the one that says June 5th, 2026, is that the one you're referencing? Yeah, that's the one that
do I have the right one open?
and I'm apologizing,
Yes.
I did not, yeah.
No? Okay, there's one that says example of full standards process?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
That's, which would say example of full standards process when you click on it. Does it say that at the top in bold letters?
Yeah.
That's the one.
Where are we at? I'm trying to follow.
Yeah, June 5th, 2026, example of full standards process.
This is, you're referencing the attachments list here in Civic Clerk?
Yes, it says standards process overview, June 2026. This is
Okay,
taking
I
some of
got it.
those ideas from the last meeting and putting them into a usable format.
Okay, I'm there. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to go through that, but then I think we're going to move it to the end and then keep working on it at the end if that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So Megan Everett, Director of Teaching and Learning. So in the example full standards process, it starts with the queuing rubric that we've been using, but moving that to, as you suggested, a 10-year review cycle with starting to queue it after at least 6 years of implementation. So, or after that 5th year. So not until the 6th year could you even begin to queue. Which is where you get some feedback, you look at the things that have changed, and you bring it forward and say, are you ready to consider a process here or not? So then once you make a decision from that point to open the standards or not, then we would make the 2 concurrent committees. And then the rest, a good bit of this details what that could look like. So the review committee would be the one that's been more historically appointed, and that would be, the suggestion is appointed by the state board and the chair, and you would take nominations and make those decisions. And that would include teachers, business representatives, higher ed, and that's what's currently on that review committee. The writing committee would be composed at the same time and more typical of the process we have currently, where we take in applications, and it's not vendors, international applicants, but it's people in the field that are their experts. And then, of course, our staff. So there's a little description there of how nominations and applications have differed previously, kind of what we use for that information. A new step then is to add in the lead liaison. So once those committees are decided upon and formed, the first thing that you would do is select kind of the lead liaisons or speakers for each of those groups. And that's who becomes the people that interact with each other between the groups and then interacts with the board throughout the process. And then the staff have to be a part of that because they live here. There are some core responsibilities for each of those detailed, which you could set, but the research group or the appointed group, they're more of your research group. They make kind of the overarching recommendations, similar to what we've had previously, but they'd be involved a little bit more throughout to make sure we're bringing it back to what those initial recommendations were. Whereas the review committee or the writing committee would be the primary actual writers and drafters of the standards as they have been. And then
Then we just talk a little bit about the agreement that we said might be signed between the review committee and the writing committee members to better detail the expectations for each, what the right to privacy might be, what the liaison responsibilities might be, how they could or could not engage in any kind of advocacy around the standards that they've written, or where the appropriate points for that would be, which we talked about being able to be put into their SSA that they signed for being a member in the first place. And then we kind of go through just a high level, it's the standards process, but it's just simplified for being able to read it and discuss it. And how that could look. And so we create those committees in step one, and research and do those kinds of things. In step two, we're really doing a research phase, which is a little bit new. That's where we look at the things that exist out in the world, compare to other standards, best practices. In step three, that's the first point of collaboration then. So the review committee, the writing committee, and board members could be together and discuss what's been found from that research phase and what recommendations would be. From there, we'd move into the initial drafting, which is the longest part of the process, just like it currently is, of writing those standards. Come back after that and bring back together the writing committee liaisons, the review committee, and board members to discuss that first draft so you could have your initial questions answered. And then that's also a point where the board could still give specific feedback, but you'd have a chance to get your questions answered and give that feedback kind of in the same bubble of time. Once they update that draft, it would go out for public comment as it does now, but we shortened that draft time, or we're requesting the legislation be able to shorten that draft time to 45 days, make updates from that public comment, and board members would still be able to give more input into that public comment point if they wanted to. Similar to now, you could take the public comment survey if you wish to. So they come back and discuss at a collaboration point 3 what those suggestions and recommendations were from public comment, what needed to be done with them, which would help direct a revision phase. After that revision, they'd come back and be able to answer any questions, show you what changed, have a little more discussion there before submitting that final draft that would go to standards and assessment and then the board. So what that does is there's still a point of specific feedback for the board built in. There's still the writing committee leading the writing work, but it would engage the review committee that did that initial research work at specific points, and then would also give the board, and it's not detailed in here, it'd be something to decide how much of the board you want. Is that just a committee? Is it a few named members? Is it 2 people? Is it everybody? But give them specific points of contact where they could ask questions and collaborate. At the same time, it doesn't open up the writing committee or the review committee to have to be available full time every day because they are working professionals too. Yeah, so that's the big picture. And then there was one other draft in there. You don't have to pull it up, but it's the concurrent committee standards revision process. So where we took those suggestions and put them into the process.
I do wonder, I like Board Member Reel's suggestion, wondering if the board member feedback form and public comment could be concurrent, because I feel like then we could be looking or getting feedback from our constituents and sharing with our own teachers and superintendents and listening to what they're saying, what the feedback is from our districts as we look at how to give feedback. And I also wonder we are looking at having a targeted review where we don't have to do a full-blown review, right? So how can that be streamlined and differentiated on when we just need to update for legal code changes and add?
That's not part of this
that's
process.
Not part of this.
That's a totally separate process.
All right. This is just the full standards. Mm-hmm. And this is more of on a 10-year timeline now that we're looking at, which I so appreciate. Thank you.
I guess I'm trying to figure out the concurrent. You mean as updates are, it almost feels like we've got to have a draft though before we get an update, just because people are moving, it has moving parts. Is that accurate? Yeah, that's what I would think. Is that what you were implying? I'm not sure. I was just trying to see.
Well, I guess,
clarification on
yeah,
that.
there wouldn't, the public comment comes after there's already a draft, a first draft, correct? Yeah.
It does. Right now, the way that we've written it is they would make a draft. You would have that point of collaboration where they could present and share their draft. You would still have the board member 30-day public feedback phase
Okay.
before they updated it and went to full public comment.
Okay.
I think the suggestion, if I'm understanding, would be to have that point of contact and feedback, but then your comments and public comments would be occurring at the same time, which would shorten the timeline just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense.
I mean, I remember why we made that change originally, but I don't think that it is completely necessary anymore. I don't know if you agree, Member Earl.
So you're saying, okay, sorry, now I started reading here. So you're saying that while it's out for public comment, board members would be making comments? This is why I would not agree with that, is because if we have significant recommendations of some kind, they've then now not gone through a public comment period. So I would recommend that we have, and I understand why, I mean, if we're just cutting time down, that's fine. But if there's significant recommendations and then that, and then we send it out for public comment, then we have a different view of it versus, does that make sense? It's almost like a more finished product versus we have, we're sending it both directions, and in the end, it may be very different than what went to public comment. And that's the only concern I have, or at least some provisions of it different. So I would want it as clean as it could be so that the public could actually address where we're wanting it to head from that point. That's what
I do just wonder if we could have a little more communication as board members, like an email sent, hey, this is going out for public comment, just so you know, these standards are being revised right now. So that we know. I got feedback on leadership standards, but I hadn't seen those, and I didn't realize those were out for public comment. So that would be helpful. We could just know.
So I understand trying to streamline everything. I do see a positive purpose for keeping the two separate, public comment. So I'm probably more aligned with what Member Real was, or Earl was giving as far as the feedback. And then Member Real, I'm trying to follow also on this document where you were thinking to combine that. So step 6 and 7, is that what you were referencing? That though that comment would be happening at the same time?
Yeah, that's what I mean, I was just trying to shorten up a bit.
But it doesn't show that on here. That's just a suggestion you have, right?
Yeah, that was what, that was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not on there.
Because I was looking for it and I couldn't
No,
find
this
it.
has it separated out. But I'm not, I'm not gonna, that's not a hill I'm gonna die on. It's just something that we've talked about over the process of the last 4 years, but.
Right.
Well, I see it's 2 public comment periods, right? Like the draft is just open for public comment for people to read. But then what's the differentiation with step 7? That's where they can actually submit their comments, but in step 6, it's just read only?
So in step 6, that's currently its own step in the process we have right now, and that's where it's brought to the board to release for public comment. Okay. So that probably just needs a better title for that section.
Yeah, and what I like about that, and I think this hits on what Member Brenton was saying, like here, being aware of when those are being released. So step 6 seems to, if I'm understanding it correctly, address that in that manner. I've also been a part of those 45-day, or the public meetings, and I've sat in on those when USBE makes their way around the state, and see parents that show up, and you sit around a table and you talk about the standards and you work through them, and I found that was something that was productive. So I don't want to
interfere with that as well. And as we've seen, the comments that we received specifically about the math standards have been very helpful as well. So I'm kind of feeling like 6 and 7 are pretty solid. So anyway, those are my feedback.
Well, we could just keep talking about this. We'll just finish it up.
Yeah.
I feel like we're there.
On the question I have actually is, oh, sorry, somebody talking.
No, go ahead.
I didn't want to talk over someone. Sorry. This actually is in regards to the liaisons. I'm trying to find it. I'm going back up on page like 1 through 3. Anyway, my question is, can board members direct the liaisons to guide specific work? Normally we direct staff to do this towards those standards, and they do that. What's that relationship between board members, making a motion and directing the work with this new role, if we are to implement that?
Do you have?
We didn't say. I believe it would be similar to the work of the writing committee right now, where through staff, you direct the writing committee to make changes, update things. So I think through staff, could direct the review committee to research something further, pull some information, whatever that request might look like.
Okay, so if we had that communication, would that be the responsibility now of that lead person to take that back to the writing committee, or is that going to be the job of designated staff to take that back to the writing committee?
I think it would be a little bit of both. Staff would definitely be present, but it would be those lead liaisons that would be the interaction point between what you want to have done and everybody that is participating in the work.
And how would we be able to track that? I feel like we have a pretty good idea of the accountability there between those requests and staff. And so how would we be able to track that communication was happening from our lead?
So that would be, I guess I'm looking between step 2 and step 3, because in step 2, they would meet, board members can put recommendations together, review committee, writing committee starts kind of looking at the research, right? And then on step 3, oh no, let's see. And then suggestions on step 2 are brought before the full board. So I guess we would make at that point, some kind of a chart or something, and then that would follow with whoever the lead liaisons. Is that maybe what would be the way that?
Yeah, I think it would be similar to how it's working now with the writing committee. You make suggestions, motions, those kinds of things. They get documented, and then they take them back and put them into action. Staff would still be present and a part. Mm-hmm. It would just be like any other meeting, is my imagining, where. But the difference from what's happening now would be, instead of talking to staff only, you would have them in front of you where they could ask follow-up questions as to what you mean, or you could clarify with them what you mean. So we're removing staff as the gatekeeper. Staff are still present, but you're having a little bit more direct conversation.
Yeah, that I think the benefit to me, I mean, I know that there's like the logisticals of like, we gave you this feedback, but it's similar when you even look at, we give feedback in a lot of different ways, and they usually give a response, right? So it might be, oh, okay, great, thank you. This is your feedback on, changing these parts of this strand. We'll take it back to the committee, and now we've been able to have a discussion, understanding your viewpoint and understanding why you think it should be included or why we didn't include it. And then they take it back. And then just like how we have in those review documents, it's like, you requested this, here's the writing committee's response. But the benefit of having those liaisons is having that conversation about, why did you not include this, or why did you include this? And I think that's huge.
I just have to tell you, I've just read through this, and I think maybe a couple of minor changes is I kind of, I'm going to have to kind of lay it out and say, oh, who's where, when, move little people around or something. I don't know. But I
Like
feel
little
like
Lego people or
something like that.
Okay. Yeah,
Something like
okay.
that. So I mean, I feel like just reading through that, there's a lot of, I think it's very simplified. I feel like it's getting to where, you know what I mean, that secondary committee kind of is a check, so to speak. I feel comfortable moving it forward, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll
that
also say,
draft.
just from like a visual perspective, this we have looked at so many of these revision process documents over the last 4 years. This is the one that like was the most easily digestible about the process, and I think all board members should read it because once it's approved, because I think that if you're not on standards, the process can be really confusing.
And I feel like there's still a little bit of time if there's between, I mean, obviously there's a lot of time, right? All of summer between now and August if there's some additional recommendations. But anyways, go ahead.
I have a couple questions too.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
How often do the leads come? Will they come every time that item is on the agenda? Or just as if step 3 is triggered, or we're on step 3, they come for that, but they don't need to come for step 6. Just wondering.
That's a great question. I think I would envision them being present for each of those steps, that would be part of the questions that we would lay out. The alternative would be at these like kind of 4 labeled collaboration points. That's what they would be held responsible for. I do think you would get better participation, perhaps, if you were able to do that. If we think about working parents or business people or whoever you'd want to put on there, them knowing kind of those 4 points that they're responsible for would be.
And I'm going to be the dead horse here. I'm trying to understand this. If a board member were to make a motion for like a direct motion, which is different than conversation, does that go through the lead know what to do with that? And what a motion actually means, what authority that holds versus staff, which they understand what that means, the process of how that's implemented and utilized, and
for sure. I don't envision that the lead liaisons would ever be interacting without staff present, and so the staff would still be helping guide and facilitate that. So they're just as they are right now with the writing committee saying like, well, this was a motion, this is something we have to do, or this is something we have to implement. So they'd be there as guidance. We also usually at the start of any, whether it's writing or review committee, do some groundwork. What do we have to do? What does the whole process look like? And so I would imagine things like, hey, motions are directives that have been agreed upon would be part of that conversation.
Okay, and our leads, will they be compensated for their time for all, if they do have to come throughout the whole process and for all the steps, that's, I guess, 12 meetings outside of the regular writing committee meetings. What does that look like?
Yeah. We have participant support costs that we pay. Currently, the way that it's situated in legislation does not allow compensation for the review committee. This would be moving it out of how it's currently detailed in legislation, and so I would assume they could have the same kinds of participant support costs and SSAs that we write with all of our writing committee members. And we do try to lay out with them ahead of time what that time commitment is going to look like, and then give them appropriate compensation. It's $30 an hour in working time is what's currently in our rules around that, plus their travel that they would need to do.
Okay. And then do we have to approve any of those budgets? Where does that money come from?
Technically, there is no money allocated to that. That's why you'll see staff do, like in fiscal notes where legislation looks like it's going to impact standards, we've tried to input what those estimated costs are. But otherwise, they come from available funds within teaching and learning that are appropriate to be used. So, bless you. Yeah. But no, the costs for those don't specifically come before the board. They're just within teaching and
Just
learning is like
available
operating
funds.
budgets.
If we have available
Yeah.
funds, sometimes I just know that like physical education, we couldn't start till the beginning of July because we didn't have any funding to start it when we actually approved it.
Yeah.
So there is a funding piece to it that we can't just do a million standards because we don't have $1 million just to do whatever we want.
Yeah.
So
There's
Do we
no
anticipate an increase in cost for the curriculum process then with a lead?
Not necessarily. It would depend on how many staff or how many writers you have. The math process, for example, has a lot more writers because they're covering 12 grade levels than something like social studies with only secondary or something like that. So, or the current civics course that's only one course, right? So the number needed can vary. And then we set our budget according to the necessary number, making sure it's a mix of do you have enough representation and expertise to get the work done, but also not just padding it because it's expensive to do.
And does that representation change? Does the number change on if it's a bigger writing committee, or do we keep it to one? And is it one?
Are you asking about like the lead liaisons?
Yes.
Right now, the way that we wrote it was 2 to 3 liaisons from the review committee and then from the writing committee. It doesn't look like we specified a number, so it's not just one, but that could be decided upon. There wasn't a specific number given.
Okay. And I was just checking.
I'm sorry. We currently have lead writers who do a little bit more of the fine tuning and grammar and brushing up, and they do spend more time, and we do typically pay them more because of that. Mm-hmm. These people would probably operate in the same way.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And I suppose if we needed to put something into code, we could make that request going into next year, right? If there's a need to even put some money behind when we ask for standards updates, but it sounds like we do that a little bit when we have a new law, but it doesn't fill the requirement for existing standards either.
Correct.
So
I can tell you historically it's cost maybe $40,000 to $50,000 to do a standards revision. The math standards are in excess of about $80,000 right now, not including the outside review. And it's just a number of hours thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Are board members allowed to email the leads moving forward if we adopt this? If we have specific questions, concerns, recommendations, what is that relationship between board members and leads? And I'm just asking because it seems like it would be the writing committee would have a level of more accessibility, and then just to understand what that relationship would look like.
The way it's written right now is that communication would happen at those specified collaboration points and then would also be detailed in whatever agreement gets written. I think that, so right now it's on page 7. One of the bullets suggests that lead liaisons can and should answer questions related to the standards at the designated points of interactions. And the hope was that by doing that, we don't overwhelm them when they're in the middle of their workday or attending to kids or whatever they do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. I think we could do a motion at this point if someone wanted to move that forward. Okay, would have to just specify, sorry. I don't know. There it is. And we'd have to specify, what's the title of the document here? Sorry.
It's Standards Process Overview, June 2026.
Yeah, and then we just need to put the title in there if someone's running that. So Standards Process Overview, June 2026.
Okay.
The current committee standards revision process draft June 2026. Sorry, there's a lot of names. I should have named better. I've learned a lesson.
I think we just make a motion that the committee move, right, and then just state that document.
We'll make a motion that the committee move the current standards revision process dated June 5th. Is that the date?
Does that work?
It says June 2026.
Oh, June 2026, and forward to the board for approval, full board for approval?
For final approval.
For final approval.
And I wouldn't use current.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I move that we move the standards revision process, the June standards revision process, dated June 2020. I move that the committee move the June standards revision process dated June 2026 and forward to the board for final approval.
Okay. Any additional discussion on this item? Okay, so the motion before the committee is that the committee move the June standards revision process, June 2026, and forward to the full board for final approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I hope other board members will just have watched the meeting and be aware that it has been lengthened and we're moving to more of a 10-year process with targeted reviews, and be aware of that.
Okay, board member.
My vote was an aye. However, I do have a question about step 10. Can I do that?
Okay, yeah, we just approved this, but we can go ahead and ask a question.
It's step 10, so collaboration point 4. It says after updating the writing committee, lead liaisons share the final draft with the review committee and board members. And I'm just want to clarify how our staff engages now. Again, like we've had staff that's kind of represented all of these steps. Am I missing? Is the review committee different? Where is staff in step 10? And then I would apply that to all the other places where I'm not seeing, again, because it seems like staff has always been there representing this work. So I was just wondering if they clarify that. If we need to clarify that, they need to be a part of this step.
Well, step 10 says the review committee reviews the updated draft for clarity and makes any final recommendations to the writing committee. After updating, the writing committee lead liaisons share the final draft with the review committee and board members. So that would be in committee meeting, right?
Yeah, I envision that the staff is still a part of every step. That's why they weren't called out separately. They're still expected to be there.
Did that answer your question, Emily?
Yeah, and so it's the lead liaisons that are now kind of shouldering this process and not staff.
I don't know if
But
there's.
Isn't it the same thing as the lead writers that would come and who have presented to the board before? Yes.
Yeah.
Megan's shaking her head yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't envision that staff is detached from this or that it becomes their responsibility. We just want to, I think staff are the facilitators of this the entire way through, just as they currently are.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. And once again, if there's, additional comments or recommendations between now and August, let's, reach out to Megan and others and see if we can come to, some understanding of what would be effective. So thank you. Thank you for the document. Okay. And that passed unanimously in case we missed reporting that out. So
Thank you, Megan.
thanks, Megan. It's been a lot of work. We've worked on it for a number of months, taken into a lot of contemplation. So we appreciate your thoughtful work on it. Next item is our sensitive materials model policy, and we're going to actually start by going to the AAG for some feedback he has.
Very limited.
Limited feedback. Just push, yep, you're good.
Get my computer to come up.
And just introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Towards you, maybe.
Darren Goff, I'm the an assistant attorney general, education division director. My computer is not responding to me. One, I asked someone in my division to take a look at this, and we had one comment, and that had to do with selection criteria and the phrase in paragraph 7, uplifting and captivating, which the reviewer identified as not a statutory or rule-based criteria.
What page is that?
It's document or page 4.
Okay. Oh, 3.
Are the other items a statutory requirement, like timeliness and permanence, readability and accessibility?
I don't know.
That isn't. I'm just like, those are not criteria anywhere. This is just trying to create a framework, and it's a may, not a have to.
Right, and I think as a lawyer, he's looking, if it's in the statute, you have sort of a safe harbor there because you've used a word from the statute. You can obviously fall back to it and say that's what the statute commands. His concern there was whether or not that phrase could be interpreted as viewpoint discrimination. And he had a recommendation to rephrase and offered the phrase educationally enriching. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about viewpoint discrimination, but that was his concern.
I just looking at that educationally enriching versus uplifting and captivating, and I don't remember exactly where those two.
Yeah, that came from me.
Okay, but I like educationally enriching because I don't think everything is uplifting and happy in books we read. I think there's war stories, there's all kinds of things that we read that deal with adversity and overcoming, and it's not always, you hope at the end it's uplifting or that there's been a lesson learned, but I think that might capture the same thing in a safer way.
Or it's just about basketball.
That's true.
Like sometimes it's like that. We had the conversation last time about reading for pleasure, like just for fun. And so I almost think that I appreciate that feedback. I'm wondering if we even need to, we could put the suggestion in there, or we could just, I think that a lot of these other criteria kind of cover a lot of it already too.
And might I just remind everyone, this is a may, and I don't mind the change, kind of, because so much of our literature we're giving our kids is depressing, and negative and derogatory, and so it's merely this isn't a recommendation. It has to meet all these areas, but certainly it's the other pieces are not in the code as well. But I see what you're saying. If that maybe caught his eye is.
The only concern would be if an LEA seized on that phrase and used it to exclude a book,
I see.
Possibly a plaintiff in litigation seizes on the phrase and says, "Well, it wasn't uplifting and captivating."
Gotcha.
You're discriminating against my viewpoint.
Okay.
We're just watching out for you in terms of litigation.
Yeah.
And if it's a hot word, then maybe that's something to think about.
Okay. Does someone want to make that motion then?
Okay, I'll make a motion to strike uplifting and captivating, number 7 in that section, and replace it with educationally enriching.
Oh, it's already there. I'm like, wow, you were pretty quick. Okay, any further discussion of that? We've already kind of discussed it a little bit. Okay, I'm not hearing any. So on number 7, let me tell you what it's under, just so we have page 4, but let's under the selection of materials for library collection. We are going to change, or the suggestion is to strike uplifting and captivating and to replace that with educationally enriching. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
Okay. Did you have anything else to add?
No, good
Okay.
job.
All right. All right. When I looked at our document, I thought we had made the motion about adding the obscene animal abuse, but
It's in there. It
Is
just says
it?
animal violence.
but I think it has to have the word obscene in front of it because that's what it says in code. Am I?
It does. It says obscene animal abuse.
Yeah, but there's other places. It does in one spot, but there's a couple of other places where I just think it says animal abuse. So we need to make sure it's just consistent. So I'm just going to make the motion that anywhere we have animal abuse, it's obscene animal abuse, so that it's the same as the code.
Yeah, page 5 has that where it's not there.
There's a couple. No, there's a couple. So I just didn't go through and highlight all of them, but yeah, because it's on page 7. Yeah. So anywhere that's found in the document, that we just make sure it's accurate there with what's in law. And I know we talked about that, but we must not have made a motion yet for that to happen. So
Do we need a motion?
any discussion? Well, I thought I placed that. But any discussion to that?
No.
Board Member Green? Okay, so the motion or the amendment before the committee is that we replace animal abuse with obscene animal abuse, so it matches code. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that passes unanimously. And if anyone else has some, they can hop in, or I have a couple. Okay, on page 12, under subjective sensitive material review process, see number 2, it says upon initiating this process, the school LEA administrator or designee will convene a subjective sensitive material review committee within a reasonable time. And I want to put on there not more than 30 days so that it can't be 6 months out, or right, that there's some, it says reasonable, but reasonable is great, but 30 days may not be the perfect number, I'm not sure, but I want to, but not more than. So I'm going to propose 30 days, and if someone wants to amend that, they can.
I mean, I don't like the idea of putting a timeline in there because I think reasonable time is basically saying, like, you did not meet reasonable time. But if for some reason, I think one to consider, just like what we have to consider as a board, is that we only meet once a month. And so sometimes I feel like 30 is too tight, depending on
45?
60?
No, I'm not 60. 60, anybody got 60? I would go as far as 45, but I wouldn't go beyond that because this is a book that's sitting now on.
But it's gone, it's pulled.
You're under the subjective, not the objective any longer.
Is that true?
Davina Southoff, Library
Yeah.
Media Specialist, Teaching and Learning. So once a initial review happens and the two individuals at the LEA review and think there's a plausible claim, the book is removed from student access. And the other thing I would add is that when we are talking about days, we might want to consider school days, just because we have summer breaks and schools will be out of session, and trying to pull people back in over a summer break might cause some concern there.
So you're saying it's still removed during this time? Mm-hmm. Even if it's gone through that? I didn't remember that. I thought once it went through the initial process and the objective sensitive materials process that it could be.
If there's a plausible claim of sensitive materials, it's removed
Okay.
From student access.
Okay.
I wondered.
Then let's make it 60 days. Just kidding.
School days? Do you want to make it?
Nah, she didn't even hear it. It wasn't even worth it.
I heard you. Let's make it 6. Let's make it 8.
No, I just don't. I'm just trying to figure out what that.
Well,
I don't know.
Does 30 school days make it enough? Because then that adds in
That's about 6
weekends,
weeks.
and that's like, I think 30 school days.
How long is it? And you've been seeing this. What is the normal? How long is it taking to usually get that writing committee to meet? This is their initial meeting on that. This is the subjective materials piece. Yeah.
I am not sure how long it is taking. I hear just kind of bits and pieces from the field that it is difficult to pull a committee together. Parents are busy, faculty, staff are busy. So, I mean, we don't want to drag it out forever, and also being cognizant of the time schedules of everyone.
I wondered too, I have just seen that ratedbooks.org is now free and open to the public. Is that a resource that our librarians and school districts can be made aware of so that they could more easily look at reviews and content in books?
So I believe our previous AAG talked about rated books, and I don't remember if it was in a committee meeting or if it was in an email thread, just that potentially that the perspectives that in which that this is not a industry standard website that is reviewing books based on the way that professional industry reviews titles, and so they may be looking at titles in a different way through a different lens than what we would want a title to be reviewed at. Does anybody remember that conversation with our AAG?
I just think it was, if I remember right, it was that they're maybe using a variety of resources and not, there was something, and I can't remember the specifics, but an individual person versus an organization or something like that. But that doesn't prohibit someone from using several sources to review their content, because if you can go to several sources and get different, there's quite a few out there right now. So, and I think a lot of districts are aware of the different resources. We have some on our page, and there's some others out there. It's an easy thing to go and kind of just get a general feel and then go from there if it's something you're interested in. But I don't know where we are at. 30 days, yeah. What do we, I just feel like reasonable time needs a parameter, and I'm not sure what that parameter needs to be. 60 school day or 30 school days, something like that.
I like just leaving it as reasonable and just like saying like if that wasn't a reasonable time, like 6 months didn't, if we do want to have accountability. So, yeah, I think I prefer that, but.
I don't mind 60 days. I think that works.
Okay.
But I think, what if it was summertime and the review was triggered in June and nobody's in school? So I think it needs to be school days.
Well, 60 school days is.
I think
half your
30.
year.
That's why I'm saying 30 school days allows for 50 or so with weekends. So.
Okay, I think I'm going to move that then. Not more than 30 school days is what I want to officially move, and then people can modify that if they want to. Any discussion to that? Further discussion? Okay. All right, so the motion before the committee is that the committee move that on, let's see, what do we got written up there? Make sure I'm doing it right. That the committee, that on page 12, the words "a reasonable time," I guess we could, yeah, we would be replacing the reasonable time, right? It'd just be, okay. With not more than 30 school days. I just think we had to use that at the end, but that just makes sense to do that, so. Yep. Yeah, so we're replacing within a reasonable time with not more than 30 school days. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Nope.
Okay, Board Member Green, where is your vote on that?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, that passed 4 in favor of that motion, and Board Member Rill opposed. And I think I had one more. Okay, so on page 18, it's under the Appeals Committee will evaluate the appeal based on the nature of the original claim and may make a final recommendation by majority vote as follows. And then under 2, it says for subjective sensitive material claims, the Appeals Committee will evaluate whether the material taken as a whole constitutes pornographic or indecent material under the statutory factor balancing standards, or, I'm adding this in there, and this is just an addition after that, or other criteria considered by the review committee. Because that's not the only reason why they may. It could be pornography. I mean, not pornography. It could be vulgarity. It could be, violence, or just offensive to that particular community. It could be a variety of things.
If you want this comes after.
Yeah, after factor balancing standards.
Delete it if you don't want it. But, okay.
Okay, so
And then we need this is just and moved up, so there's not like 3 breaks in the paragraph.
yeah, well, that's a technical piece, but yeah. Okay, or other criteria considered by the review committee.
Vivian can just remove the page. There's a line right there.
I also wonder in the sentence where it says the committee may make a determination that the material is subjective sensitive and the material will be removed or is not subjective. Is that clear enough, or should maybe that's just grammatically, or was found not subjective and remains? Or is it fine the way it is?
The committee may make a determination the material is subjective sensitive and the material will be removed or is not subjective.
You could add the committee may make a determination that the material is not subjective. Is that your concern?
Yeah.
It just.
It is a little bit kind of clunky. Yeah.
So then add after.
And then maybe it needs a comma or
The committee may make a determination
maybe it's a semicolon needed there, because then that's a long sentence.
that the material. And then it starts. So that's what you're adding.
So would you just need to switch the and and the or? So determination that the material is subjective material. Oh, no. And the material will be removed or is not subjective material.
Has 2 choices, right?
Yeah.
Can I see the amendment up there, if we have it?
Maybe it just adds material at the end of subjective, so it doesn't just sit there.
So I'm wondering, Member Chair Earl,
Yeah.
if you would consider that added and or the committee may make a determination, or I'm just wondering, I just want to make sure we're not leaving it up to any ambiguity and keeping it within the policy. And so I don't want them to be like, well, I'm a Boston Red Sox fan and this book is about the New York Yankees, so I'm not putting this in the library, right? Like, I don't want to leave it up to people being able to pull things. So if we add there, can make a determination,
That it doesn't.
it's something that's in the code or in the policy, not just,
But it is, just keep in mind, we're talking about other criteria that was considered by the review committee. This is the appeals committee. So they're going to be looking at what was considered by the review committee, not
and
by
what's
what's
considered by the review committee is something that's in the policy or in the code.
It is already in the policy. So are you trying to say review committee from the policy?
No. No. I just want to make sure that it's not like, or anything else you might want to consider, because just without
But
saying.
it says the review committee. I think in appeal, you're only looking at what's already been taken place. Am I right? Should be. Okay, so do you think there needs to be clarity there? Because it is the review committee, there's the review committee sending it to the appeal.
Yeah, I'm wondering if her concern is that the review committee's considered something inappropriate. Is that your concern?
No, I'm concerned that they could use some explanation or any explanation for removing the book, like, a consideration that isn't something that's in the code to be. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we can spell it all out.
No, I don't know that that's necessary.
Yeah.
You have limited the appeal committee to considering
Yeah.
whether or not the review committee reviewed the proper standards.
Okay, so that is clear.
They're not being allowed to add, they're not being allowed to add new criteria or considered new facts.
Oh.
Sorry. I'm not used to this.
You're fine.
Yeah, you're good. That's on.
Okay.
And then we'll come over in a second. Okay, go ahead, Davina, and then we'll circle back if we need to.
So on page 14, where the review, on number 7, the review, we're talking about the review committee here. And in the body of the paragraph, it says, in deciding whether the material constitutes subjective sensitive material, the committee must consider A, B, C, and A should be D. There's a mistake there, so I'll fix that. And D is that other criteria that you're talking about. And as we were talking about the appeal, I was just thinking about this. I understand what you're trying to do, but we say subjective sensitive material, and there's a legal definition of subjective sensitive material, and A, now new D, the number 4 there, item there, that is not part of the definition of subjective sensitive material. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that.
Yes, but I'm going to argue that if you can take into consideration other things, and we're telling them that, the review committee. And then when we get back here, we're saying, oh, but only these things and not the other criteria which they can take into consideration, that other criteria, under subjective, not under objective. So
I guess I'm wondering if we may need to clarify that, because those items, violence, are not actually part of the definition of subjective sensitive material. So we may need to clarify that they can determine something to be not subjective, but it also may be something we don't want in the school library. Does that make sense? Like that D, where it says violence, pervasive vulgarity, that's not part of the subjective sensitive material definition.
I understand, but they can take those into consideration.
100%.
Yes.
Yes.
And I just want, when they get to the end, not to say, well, if it doesn't meet these two objectives, subjective, that the other consideration that was taken into consideration still could be looked at.
Yes.
Right?
I understand
as a
that,
possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any other comments on that? Thoughts on that before we?
Just that this new A also has the animal abuse, so we need obscene in there on 14
Well,
too.
it'll include all, right? So, okay. So if we did or other criteria considered by the review committee, so it's not going outside of what the review committee did. Are we still within parameters?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure that there isn't any ambiguity there.
Yeah, and that's why I threw the review committee in there. It's not any other criteria. It's got to be narrowly focused to what they've already considered because they're an appeal body. So, okay. All right, let me see.
Jen has it up there, and she put it in context, so hopefully you...
Oh, okay.
We gotta use the motions document.
Okay. I'm like, that's not in context for me.
There you go.
Okay, so this is what the motion would be. On page 18, after statutory factor balancing standards, that.
Other way. There you go, right there. We just need that highlighted pink.
Down
to be.
a little more.
Sorry, so all the highlighted pink, just if that's on the screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, you put it in I see you put the whole thing in there. Okay, so let me read this out and see. For subjective sensitive material claims, the appeals committee will evaluate whether the material taken as a whole constitutes pornographic or indecent material under the statutory factor balancing standards or criteria considered by the review committee. The committee may make a determination that the material is subjective sensitive material and the material will be removed, or the committee may make a determination that the material is not subjective. And the final determination of the appeals committee will be communicated to the requester and appropriate employees within 10 days of the determination. And just for the public, let me read the pieces added. So it would be adding in or criteria considered by the review committee, and then just clarifying on the second to last sentence, or the committee may make a determination that the material is not subjective. Okay, any additional discussion to that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. And that's all I had. So I don't know if others had any recommendations, or if not, we can move the policy forward.
Now I think we're ready for a motion.
I did have one question.
Okay.
Real quick. Let me find it. It is on the objective where we took out the requirement for them to have the book as a whole. We said they may provide the book. Sorry.
I don't think it, oh, okay. You're on page 10.
Thank you. On page 2?
5. It's
Oh,
5.
right there, yeah. Members of the review could receive materials to complete the review process, including the following: access to the, it did say access to the complete work that includes the material being challenged, and may provide access. It was very valuable in the 2 committees that I've sat on, and it was a total of about 10 books to have the whole book to understand.
And I guess the difference here would be the objective versus the subjective material.
The fact that you're
So-
just saying, it's in here, it's out. We don't need to see the whole book. Is that what you're?
No, it can be provided access if you want, but it's, I guess,
So you're not requiring it?
yeah. If you've got the other materials available. So
Yeah, it's like.
it's up to you guys if someone wants
It's
to make
like
a
saying
motion,
that
you
you're
can move
reading the
forward.
book without the context because you're only getting certain sections
Because
of it.
it's the objective, not the subjective.
Right.
Being the difference. So. It's up. If you want to make a motion, you can make a motion, but because it's the objective, I personally like where it's at so that it's less time consuming, but.
Yeah.
I'm
Have you sat
thinking-
on these committees?
I have not.
Okay. Right, no, I will, in this committee, I'll leave it.
Okay. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion for the document?
Sure.
You got to turn it on.
I think I have one more question.
Okay.
Okay, so we added in there the violence, pervasive vulgarity, and self-harm, right? I'm trying to keep it narrowly into the law. And so, well, I'm just wondering, maybe the AAG can help with this, but I just am wondering if adding that violence, pervasive vulgarity, and self-harm, I mean, I have listened to all of the debates in the committee and on the floor for all of this, and the interpretation and of those definitions is what gets complicated, right? That's why we've had 8,000 times of committee meetings where they're talking about these specific pieces. So I'm wondering if adding that, again, sort of similar to my last one, could be confusing for our LEAs if they're trying to understand those pieces.
I mean, what you're saying is
Because they're
that
not in the-
you're
they're
having
not-
a committee actually review this, not an individual. So I think you're having a committee that's actually having to just argue either this does or doesn't.
Like, violence is so broad, right?
Yeah.
So, and without like having that vetted through like we have with the law on what those definitions are.
Well, we could put gratuitous, excessive.
Well, I don't like putting things that are up to being interpreted in different ways because I think that's what we've seen causes a lot of confusion.
Once again, it's a committee that's meeting.
I know,
right?
I
It's a group of
understand that.
people,
I understand
so.
that.
Davina, do you have a suggestion in there?
Well, I'm wondering, I kind of want to tag on and ask the AAG this. So on that page 14, number 7, we're talking about subjective sensitive material, and we added that line. So if a committee is including violence, pervasive vulgarity, and/or self-harm as the criteria they're using to remove the title under a subjective sensitive material review, does that then, if they say, yes, we think it's subjective sensitive material because it has violence, pervasive vulgarity, and/or self-harm, which is not part of the definition in legislation, Would that, which the law also requires that if it is determined to be subjective, it has to be removed in the entire district. But let's say you have a title that is self-harm in junior high and the committee says, well, we think it's subjective because it's violent, vulgarity, or self-harm, and they want to move it to high school. Can they do that even though they were reviewing for subjective and the law says it has to be removed district-wide? That's where I'm concerned. Is that just age appropriateness title?
You just said it was going up to the recommendation.
Could it, because the law says if it's determined to be subjective by a committee, it's removed district-wide automatically.
That might include high school.
And that would include high school.
Okay.
It probably should be a grade level removal if it's determined, maybe not all the way.
What is where's the definition for subjective?
It's in 53G 10103. Well, part of it. It starts there. Let's see. And it says on number 1HIII, subjective sensitive material means an instructional material that constitutes pornographic or indecent material as defined in section 76.5C208. Material that is harmful to minors under section 76.5C101, material that is pornographic under section 76.5C101, and includes certain fondling or other touching under subsection 76.5C2071AID specifically.
And can we look at 76.5C101? Again, pornography. Where's this animal abuse?
So I could read it if
Violence, vulgarity, yeah.
So harmful to minors under 7C101 says means that quality of any description or representation in whatsoever form of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, sadomasochistic abuse, sexual conduct with an animal or animal crushing when it I taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest of sex in minors. I is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community, and I taken as a whole does not have serious value for minors. That's what I'm.
It does not have serious value for minors. I mean, that's what we're.
Yeah, so do we need to specify?
There, though, so
Yeah.
Where is I'm looking back up at the.
And it's saying serious value for minors based on nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, not anything else is the way.
That's kind of what I'm reading there. Right. Mm-hmm. So are we pulling my mic's on. Are we pulling the reference to violence? How are we grounding, is that grounded in statute? And do we have a way to, I mean, obviously we're in a rule, we're sort of condensing this very, 76.5C10 is gigantic. That's a huge statute.
Right.
With a lot of stuff in it. And clearly anything there, material that includes this stuff could be subjective. Where's violence coming from, and how do we ground that in statute?
That was sort of my exact question. I was like, if we put this in, does it lead people to have different interpretations?
And we've added or other sensitive content. So we're not saying it's sensitive material. We're saying other sensitive content.
Right.
Yeah.
But it says, or other sensitive content like violence, pervasive vulgarity, animal abuse as referenced. When we say as reference, okay, there's no comma there.
That's to animal abuse.
Okay, so elsewhere in the statute, do we have discussion of violence and how it relates to this definition of subjective?
It's not in 101. The only thing in 101 is the animal crushing and
Right.
which is mostly sexual related stuff.
Not sure if I'm answering a question or.
I guess yeah.
I wouldn't.
You don't have to answer today.
Yeah. I mean,
we can. Here's the thing: we're kind of putting you on the spot, and it would be probably good to do a more thorough look through a variety of things. Only because if you're saying take violence out, what we're saying is we're not making that part of our book. You know what I mean?
But
and in doing that, what we're also saying is that we're just opening that up, and I think we're opening ourselves up for probably more laws for that too. When in essence, a district could decide that those pieces are sensitive for students.
Yeah,
so
I guess I just want to pick. I want to look carefully at the definition of sensitive and see if that can be. These other terms. I mean, obviously, the animal abuse that you're grounded there.
Yeah.
And you're specifically referencing it in your rule. These other things, how do we use them? Now, there is weird stuff in here, like, flagellation or torture by or upon a person who is nude or clad in undergarments, a mask. I mean, that's oddly specific.
Mm-hmm.
But violence is such a broad term. I'm not sure how to provide guidance.
Well, and there's so many instances in war books and things in history where violence is teaching a lesson, like you just have to learn about it because it's part of history. What's the differentiation here that would set it apart?
And I would almost argue that's why you put a group of parents together and educators in your community who can. That's the importance of that committee versus us saying. So.
Right. I understand.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. We can get some additional feedback in between now and our next, right? Just kind of like what we did.
Well, I was going to say part of the reason I think that was why we had age appropriateness in there was because I understand.
There is no definition of age appropriate that
I know, but here's my thing. I guess and I can take this to full board and we can have the discussion there, and that's fine. But my when we spent a lot of time on the rule, I think what I took from that was that anything that is ambiguous or a little bit vague or can be interpreted in some different way by a different group or someone within that parent group, I like to keep it really clear and within the law that's been vetted so much to make sure that those definitions are clear. So that's why I don't like adding anything that's beyond the code or the definitions that we have.
Age appropriateness is not in the code.
I'm not arguing about age appropriateness. I'm just saying that's probably why we have that in there. But my point is that I don't want to even, in a parent group, if they're, or whatever the review committee looks like, is like that they're sitting there saying, well, I think this is violent. Well, I don't. But like in other instances, they're able to say, we have a definition of this being X, Y, and Z. And so that's why it's not that I want violent books in children's hands that shouldn't have it. I'm just saying it causes some confusion potentially because of the ambiguity.
That was one thing very nice. Sitting on those committees, we had to have pre-training that was done, and the entire training was based on code. Here's the code, here's what it says, here's the code, here's what it says. So it was very clear when you open those books and you start reading, you're like, dead on, this is what the code says, this is out. And then when I had a parent screaming at me because I voted to remove a book, I was like, well, this is the law. We're obeying the law. I had something to fall back on.
And okay, whatever this body wants to do, I just think we're now opening it up for things that I think we're going to see more code next year and stuff. But yes.
Oh, and I would just add, I agree 100%. A committee comes together, can evaluate a book for whatever. I was just concerned about lumping that in with the subjective because it adds requirements that we may not really intend to do with a book that has some violence in it. That was my concern there. And then that's where, when I was thinking about this model policy, I'm thinking what schools use, which is they do look at age appropriateness, they look at violence, they look at, and they evaluate that, but we don't want it to be under the requirements of sensitive materials because it will have an unintended consequence for our students accessing, literature. It really will. If we're thinking about like the war books and things like that, biographies and that we want our high school students to be able to access. So that's just my.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking of those books. That's why, once again, that's why you have that committee, because there are books out there that are extremely violent that have nothing to do with war or, are derogatory towards the human body.
So is it covered already in the objective? Do you think violence? No.
Not under the objective. So maybe we'll have to put human crushing under there.
I'll just make the amendment and we can vote on it and move on. So on AD, after death, AD, A/D, I sent you an amendment, Leah, if you have it. I don't know if you have it there. To change the language in A/D. Page 14. To may consider other criteria found to be harmful to minors, such as animal abuse, as referenced in section 76, 5C, 101.
So you're just changing it to other criteria harmful to minors?
May consider other criteria harmful to minors, such as, I'm just like taking out those pieces that we don't have.
You want obscene animal abuse.
Yes, yeah, and change that to obscene animal abuse.
Well, doesn't that just fall under the law? So you can just move that? You wouldn't want to include that. You would just put other criteria harmful to minors?
As found in as referenced.
As referenced.
Which is only what? So now you've taken out the language, you've taken out the violence, you've taken out self-harm.
Yes.
As a consideration.
Yeah, so then maybe it should just say may consider other criteria found to be harmful as referenced in section 76, 5C, 101. So you can just take out harmful to minors.
Take out the blue.
Yep. As reference, yeah, just take that whole highlighted part out.
I'd like additional information before I would, even if we had to have two sections, one that was specific to sensitive materials, and then one that was specific to, subjective sensitive materials, right, and objective, but then one that was harmful to minors section or something.
Well, the interesting thing about referring back to the code is that it is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable material for minors. So they can go back and they can read this book, and instead of us calling out things that are not statutorily based, they look at this and they can use that as a fallback, is that this is patently offensive. When you took a persuasive vulgarity is patently offensive. But creating a term that is not statutorily based opens up to harm, where here you're opening it to, we're not limiting it to words that we've decided that are incorrect. We're putting it back to code that says if this group finds this book patently offensive, whatever that may be, not our simple violence, vulgarity, we're putting it back into the hands of the community to say, in our community, this is what we find patently offensive, and it's based on code.
I'm going to have to consider.
Yeah, and then
I'm not ready to make a motion.
Can I adjust that?
So.
Well, I'll make the motion now so it's on there and I have it for next time. And then, and then also on page 7 for A. So the language is, I don't know if you can put on page 14 and page 7 for A, because it references it in the same way on 7 for A. It's the same thing. So it's just changing the language in both places to be the same, consistent. Yeah. To be amended to read, yeah. That's perfect.
And for clarity on what you'd like the AG to look at, we're assessing.
Provisions related to whether we can actually indicate that vulgarity could be one of those things.
Violence, pervasive
Yeah.
vulgarity, and self-harm.
Yes.
The appropriateness of including them
Yeah.
within the definition of subjective offensive.
Well, or even how those could be considered in here.
Okay.
If it's not under that specific definition, could those be considered under another, like an ABC kind of a thing?
And we are saying may, not shall. I feel like committee members in different communities would be okay with it the way it is. I don't know.
I'd like to move to amend. I would like to add after minors and is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community.
That can be friendly.
Patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community.
You guys.
So the Miller test
It's
means
totally
nothing.
fine. Patently prevailing. I did it. Okay. Is that going after all of these? Is it friendly?
That's after minors and before as referenced. It all comes from code.
Yeah, I mean, we can put the Miller test in, that's what that in essence is, which is why we ended up with more laws, but, it, yeah, sure.
Is that in both places?
That is what, I think that is what it says in there.
It's in both. Okay. Then I'm just gonna toss it
Yeah,
here
they put the Miller test in.
and then it's all good. Yes? Community. We're all trying our best here, everybody, including my spell check.
Are you, is that it? Is that what you want?
Just really quickly, I think we're gonna need to move the code section up to be after minors. Does that make sense? Because otherwise, we're saying that the code is saying what the community finds. Is that? So right now, as it currently reads, it's saying that the standards for the adult community is being referenced in that section. This would need to stay here.
That line is from code, so maybe put
So
it at the
definitely is.
beginning.
As long as it's in code, it can say that. I just wanted to make sure that that is code.
That is.
Then we're
it's
fine.
part
Okay.
2, 8A2 in the definition of.
As long as it's in code and they can find it with that reference. Then we're fine. Okay, yeah. Okay,
That's fine. And this is a friendly, you don't need to
thank you.
do a, I'm fine with that amendment to the motion.
So as referenced in that code, so it's only patently offensive if it's referenced in that code? Just help me and make sure that I'm reading that correctly. So only if it's referenced in that code would it be considered offensive? That's what it sounds like. So then we've just narrowed the scope once again, right? So.
Oh, see, I'm not trying to narrow the scope. I'm actually trying to say that the community gets to determine what is
I know, but I'm
offensive.
just making sure that.
What if it said or?
Well, the code does say.
No, that's fine. What I'm looking at is the 76.5C101 reference, which is an additional basis.
Yeah, otherwise it's saying only if it meets, it's offensive, these things in that code, that section, instead of offensive to
I think
the.
it should be an or. And I think there needs to be after adult community, comma, or as.
So not and here. Keep this and move the or. And if
Well,
patently
I'm not,
offensive.
now I'm messing with someone's amendment, so I don't want to necessarily do that.
No, that works.
That works.
Or is referenced.
Yes.
Okay. So the motion is by Board Member Rill, is that on page number 14, subsection 7D, and on page number 7, subsection 4A, be amended to read, may consider other criteria found to be harmful to minors and is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community, or is referenced in section 76, 5C101, That's the motion. Any discussion to that, additional discussion or thoughts? Okay, I'm just going to I'm holding this out there. I need to do a little bit more research before I want to move this forward to make sure that it's not just narrowing the scope so much. So, and I'd love a little additional feedback from the AAG on, how the impacts, or even if we moved another section, what that would look like. But any other comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
No.
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 Okay, that fails, but I think, would you mind, I'd like just a full analysis maybe of even this amendment here, because it may hit the spot where we want it. I just want to make sure that that's where it's at before we move that forward, so. Okay, that fails. The fours were Board Member Real and Board Member, I almost said Green, Board Member Wood, and our 4. And any other discussion? Okay, looking for a motion to move it forward.
Okay, I will move that the committee repeal the 2022 model policy and adopt the 2026 model policy draft 3 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Okay, any additional discussion to that motion? Okay, the motion before the committee is that the committee repeal the 2022 model policy and adopt the 2026 model policy draft 3 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. As amended. Sorry, as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that passes unanimously. And we've got USEAP.
And then the study, the audit timeline.
Oh, we got to do that. We got to do that first. Yeah, sorry. Someone's got to keep me on track here. Okay, we're going to try to get through these pretty quick. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that? Thank you. I would have missed that completely. It is. It is. Do you want to share just when Board Member Green had asked last time to bring back some information on timeline? Would you mind sharing that?
So before we dive into the specific timeline, I want to just share an important clarification from the Internal Audit Department regarding the language of the motion. To align with Board Rule R277-100-100 and protect the technical definition of a formal audit, they've asked us to adjust the term to a monitoring review instead of audit, unless we wanted to have the internal audit team do that themselves. So just broke down the timeline into 4 different phases: a physical phase, the supply chain and procurement of materials, and then compliance and training. So what librarians and districts provide for training or get and provide for training. And then the final phase would just be the synthesis and evaluation of that, of all of that collection, data collection. And I don't believe any of the time needed by the districts and LEAs to provide input would be at the librarian level. I think the majority, unless it's like a charter school who may not have a district person or a charter school director who has that information. But I also narrowed phase 1, the fiscal analysis, and phase 2 to just 12 districts and 3 charters as a random sampling instead of trying to get all of that information from all 41, just to limit the time because this already was an extensive amount of time there. So, but for compliance and training, I think it'll be a lot easier to get all of that information from all of the districts and charters.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
If we were to pursue something like this, would this be an appropriate use of discretionary funds?
Good question, because I already asked that. I think this would be. We could. I was thinking, because I was thinking there's a lot of time for staff here, is that we could ask for additional funding to help with that we already, so there's someone that we could either contract with or hire on as to assist with this. So, are you calling a friend? Okay. I didn't know if you would call a friend on this. You're good. You're good. So I think we could. I don't know if that piece needs to go to the full board, and we can start, and then if we get additional funding, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I could only support this if we knew that there was funding. I mean, as many staff that we've had to lose over time with the different changes in code that took funding away, I don't know that I don't believe, and I guess I could not approve this without feedback from our superintendency that they're, and I guess maybe Superintendent Voorhees could speak to this, is that do we have capacity and funding to do this, to even start this on our own?
And is there enough of a flag or reason to do a comprehensive audit of every school district?
It's not an audit.
Monitoring, okay.
I don't know who. Yeah, sure.
So this is a very comprehensive monitoring review, and it would take a lot of capacity. You can see on the summary table the number of hours that it would take of hours, which is one thing, but the number of LEA hours that it would take as well to be able to implement. So, I mean, we can certainly work out the details related to our capacity, but it would be very beneficial, as Chair Earl and I talked about previously, to bring in some capacity through a professional services agreement. What we didn't talk about, though, Chair, is that LEA, the total number of LEA hours that would be required. That's a lot of capacity for them as well.
And if we do something like this, is there a way to help use our discretionary funds to support LEAs? Or is there kind of a line between?
No, as Megan mentioned earlier, I mean, we have a participant support cost policy. So if LEAs, if people outside of the agency are doing work for us, we do have a policy about how we can compensate them for that. They have to be available, obviously, but we do have a policy.
Okay. Board Member Green, do you want to weigh in a little bit and kind of give us some thoughts? You might be muted if you're talking because we're not hearing you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, first I just wanted to tell you thank you for what is in front of us. I know that this is a very heavy lift. It's actually something that I've been following for a long time, and it's an area that is being missed in this conversation in a very big way. My fear is that if we don't understand what is in front of us, we will continue to see laws come forward that I've argued in a positive way that are reactionary instead of maybe fully understanding the dynamic that exists and the relationship that exists with the library industry and the public education system. So that's why I believe 100% that this is important, that we understand what this looks like now at a state level. And then moving forward from that, I believe that we will see a more proactive and approach to how our libraries are curated. So I am in support of moving forward, recognizing that this does take time and it will cost money, but it is of high benefit to, I think, everyone around this subject. So if we could move forward with this, that would be fantastic. And maybe we start with phase 1, and then we can begin the process of working out some other logistics. That way we can get going on this I know time is of the essence.
Could I just ask a question to Davina? Because I'm looking at this and I think the goals are really good to stop at the front end the vendors and the booksellers from sending materials to our libraries that do not meet our bright line rules, so that we're not constantly playing defense and having parents have the burden of finding books and go through the review process. But if we could have, does it require this, Davina, or could we have a policy in place now, or do we, that says, like, you can't be bringing books in that don't align with Utah law?
So we don't have a policy, and we don't have legislation that speaks to that. And I think Board Member Brinton, it was you last time that mentioned the Texas law, which has been struck down by the Supreme Court, or the Texas Supreme Court, as unconstitutional. So I don't know. That makes me a little hesitant without some legal counsel and guidance to what a policy might look like, or a rule. But
I think, and talking with Board Member Green, and I kind of agree with this, it's understanding how the system works, the book system works. And I think that's kind of the question here, how it rolls out, how things come in, how they move forward, anyways. So I think this was more intensive than I had envisioned, but maybe that's okay, because that's why I was like, who wrote this? Someone's really, which I thought was great. I was like, Debbie Davis must have written this, so that's a compliment, and I was impressed, Davina. So, but I wondered how
I'm ready to be on the auditing team anytime Debbie asks.
Well, I was impressed by it. That's why. So, anyways, go ahead, Board Member Green.
Well, and the thing really that is super important probably is phase 1 and phase 2. That we have to understand the contracts that exist. We have to understand the funding. We have to understand the supply chain and procurement. And I've tried to explain that and highlight that. I think we've done a pretty good job here on the key focus areas. So, and we just have to understand the acquisition pipeline. We have to identify if there are recurring sources of problematic material curation. We have to improve the procurement safeguards. And then we just have to strengthen our communication with vendors and organizations. And we need to understand that through just the vendor transparency and also the industry influences. The argument has been raised also that what is available drives the availability of what is actually purchased. And so I also want to understand the primary organizations and the vendors that supply, that recommend, that curate, that market or distribute the materials to the Utah Public School Libraries. And then I'd like to procure a pathway through which those library materials move from the publisher to the school library, including the roles of the publishers, the distributors, the review organizations, the professional associations, and the collection development services. And I know that this is a lot, but to understand this is pivotal in the relationships. It's one of the biggest relationships that exists in, industry versus public education outside of curriculum procurement. I also am aware of possible more legislation coming forward where the online procurement of books and material and curriculums, what can happen in that realm is, and what is happening in that realm, you have your product number. And if in this, I'm going to go extreme here, but this is actually happening, where you can access drugs through some of these online sources. Well, that's flagged, it's taken off, a new number is assigned to that, and that item is actually back online within 24 hours. We have documented, proof of that. So it isn't a system within itself, and I think we have an obligation to understand what it is that we're working with, especially with the moving forward of technology. Vendors play a huge part, organizations play a huge part, and I want us to understand what those relationships look like. So if we need to, I think probably the most productive thing now is to understand if funding is needed, and how we go about moving forward, because I don't want this to be delayed. I'd like to at least have some kind of action that we can start with and then continue to develop and work out the details.
So Board Member Green, we're wondering to move this forward, and then we kind of looked at some of the costs that would be associated with this. We're thinking we would ask at the board meeting, if we had a board meeting in July, and I'm not suggesting that, then it could be on that agenda, but 50 to 60 thousand from our discretionary funds, and there's a variety of places that could come. That would cover some of the costs for staffing for districts, or what did we call that? It's not a reimbursement, it would be just support costs. Support cost. And then it would also be able to fund someone maybe on a contractual basis to work with our staff to maybe do some of this work. Does that sound?
That's good. So we could move this forward, and then we can have that discussion, say at our next board meeting in August.
Yes.
Okay. And what could we expect? Like, is there anything that's reasonable that we could get started in the meantime?
I don't know what, Davina, maybe you could talk to that, because I don't know times and obligations now, but there may be parts of this that could be begun. I just don't have that information.
I'm just looking through here. I mean, before our next meeting in August, and I guess without any funding.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion? Will you maybe meet with Leah or whoever is your supervisor, and maybe send us, just the committee, just some things that you could initially get going, so that you're working on I don't know what your schedules are and what your commitments are right now, whether they're less or more because school's out, and then maybe give us an initial, we can begin these processes prior to adequate, you know what I mean, fully funding. So does that sound reasonable?
Yep.
Does that sound reasonable?
The other thing, would it be helpful if I've been trying to research, organization influences and how this other realm works. I've come across a list of organizations that exist and are utilized and help, make our public libraries functional. So you got the School Library Journal, you've got the Book List, Kirkus Reviews, Publishers Weekly, National Council of Teachers of English, International Society for Technology and Education. Some major vendors and distributors are Follett Content Solutions. You have Mackin Educational Resources, Permabound Books, Junior Library Guild, Ingram Content Group, Baker and Taylor. And then you've got the others like Scholastic Penguin, Harper and Collins, Macmillan, Simon and would it be helpful if I send those to you? Because that's like the specific lane I'm looking to see, like what those relationships look like. And I don't know if you've rolled that into the supply chain and procurement part of what you've given us. And I'm asking because if I need to make a motion now, I can. If we're flexible on that, I'm more than happy to share what I've personally been collecting and researching what would be best.
I'm always open to more information, so please share. I'm very familiar with all of those names that you mentioned as well. So,
okay. I don't know how the committee feels if I need to put that into any of make an
maybe
amendment
Board
to the
Member
phase
Green,
two.
when you send something forward, maybe just send it to the committee too. Does that make sense? So that
Okay.
we're in the loop.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we just want to look at phase two, the distribution center technical processing. So it says investigating vendor provided shelf ready services. That's a really, really big one. Also a person that I'd spoken with had mentioned that some of these organizations do create shelf ready packages, and they for $10,000 you get this many books, and we already have it listed, and you can just kind of browse through that, click order, and it just shows up. So there are ways that our libraries are being stocked with books, and again, that's just another level that I would love to really understand how the industry is influencing what and how those books are showing up in our libraries. So I will go ahead and put that together, and I will send that out to the committee if that is okay with you.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, if you'll send that on. So, okay, so I think the motion.
And I just was going
yeah.
to comment before we vote. I appreciate this, and thank you for putting this work together. And I think that this is something that could be really interesting and useful for us, for sure. I look at the bigger picture of, you know, the changes in laws that have come out, the multiple laws that have come out, the changes in the sense material laws. And I just keep going back to our librarians. And it's hard for me to, I feel like we don't have the time and resources for this kind of work. And I also just don't feel like it's necessary, because I feel like those librarians are first of all, because we have already so many procurement laws and rules and policies in place as a state. Like, I always joke when I hire someone that's from the public sector and they come to work with me at the college, I'm like, well, there's about 10,000 things we need to do before you get that lunch bought for the meeting, right? Because we work for the state and it's taxpayer dollars, and it's very important to make sure that our dollars are used wisely and that there's accountability. And so the work that can be done here could be really interesting, but I don't think we have the capacity, and it's hard for me to put this on, even having been on audit for the last 4 years, the work that it takes for these LEAs to do this. It's hard for me to support it, because I just don't think that at this time they have the capacity, and our LEAs have the capacity. And I just trust our librarians that they're procuring the right kinds of books. But I totally understand where you're coming from, Member Green, and I think this is really thoughtful. And but I just, from a big picture perspective, I can't support it. So.
No, I appreciate that feedback. If I can respond.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know, like it really is. It's so big. And I'm just thinking of, we're at 32 books, and all the effort that it takes for all of these committees, all from the state, from the top all the way to the bottom, left, right, and center, that have this burden placed on them. I think the main goal is a focus on communicating just clear procurement expectations and legal compliance requirements to the vendors and organizations that do business within Utah schools. And so to understand and be able to communicate that clearly, I think will save everybody a lot of time in the future. I'm not seeing it go away. I feel like things are getting better. And this would just streamline maybe better communication for that. And I think just one more thing, that messaging that if you wish to market, recommend, curate, or sell materials to the Utah Public Schools, just being able to understand Utah's legal standards and provide tools that help schools comply with those. And I think we develop that, we're going to be in a really great place.
Okay, we're just looking at some technical questions here. Did we get anything resolved?
Well, you missed Member Green and I's great discussion.
No, I heard all your discussion, which it was great. It's true. Just a second, we're just figuring something out here. Okay. So we might just set this, because we have one more item to go to. We're going to set this aside for just a second. We're trying to make sure how we can ask, because it wasn't cited. Does that make sense? So it was within the backup, yeah.
Jenny?
Yeah.
What if, to your point about asking leadership about it, what you ask leadership to send it to law
We might.
licensing in July?
Oh, okay, so law and licensing is having a July meeting. So we can request leadership just so that we can make sure it's an action item. That the problem we're running into is it's not, although it wasn't noticed, although we don't adhere to public comment. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll have to see if this can be on the agenda. Let's get what we want to go on, and request that maybe leadership consider putting this on law and licensing so that it can actually have a vote behind it. So I think it would be moving forward the recommended policy consideration, the monitoring. What did we title it? How did we title it? Give me a second. Let me find
Comprehensive
it.
school library monitoring timeline.
Yes. So I guess, Board Member Green, do you want to make that motion and then just ask that we consider using $50,000 to $60,000 of discretionary funds? And then we can hammer that out a little bit more with Scott Jones and make sure we've got the right amount there.
And
or why don't you just do 60,000, and then what we'll do is if we can request that is amended if it changes.
okay, and just for clarification, last month's meeting where that motion was made, why was that bumped underneath? Was it because it fell underneath the sensitive materials, or should it have been its own agenda item because the motion was made?
Yeah, it was put under sensitive materials, but it wasn't cited as a separate action item as far as requesting like funding for it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was an oversight probably on my part, not intentional, but.
Okay, so so I would move that we move the comprehensive school library monitoring timeline forward to law and licensing's July meeting, requesting 60,000 in funding
From discretionary funds.
from discretionary funds.
Okay.
And then do I need to clarify and to move forward to full board in the August 2026 meeting?
Yeah, I think that would be
Is that
good.
appropriate?
Yeah, that would work. Okay, so well, let me read it, and then if there's any discussion. Yeah, after library, we need the word monitoring, if you don't mind. Okay, so let me read it, and if we need to adjust anything, we can. That the committee ask board leadership to add the comprehensive school library monitoring timeline to the July Law and Licensing Committee meeting, requesting $60,000 from the discretionary funds, and to move the timeline forward to the full board meeting in August. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye?
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Okay, Board Member Real is in opposition. There were 4 for this. So, okay, we have one more item. It's our, what is it, our, USEAP recommendations. So do we have someone to present that?
I am.
You are presenting, okay. All right, we'll try to be quick so people can get some lunch here.
Thank you, Leah Voorhees, Deputy Superintendent. So as you know, the Utah Special Education Advisory Panel is one of your advisory committees, and 50% of the members are parents of individuals with disabilities or individuals with disabilities. So this year, they have been, they determined at the beginning of the school year that they have 2 priorities that they wanted to look in depth at and possibly make recommendations to the board regarding. So the first in-depth priority was special education teacher recruitment and retention. They spent a couple meetings reviewing all of the cactus data that we have about special education teachers and the multiple Utah Education Policy Center studies that they have done for us related to special education teacher satisfaction, workload, pre-service experiences, and then reviewed our AppleSped program in depth. After all of that review and discussion, they are bringing forward 3 recommendations for you to receive using Board Member Davis's word yesterday. The motion says accept, but accept does not mean that you will implement necessarily. It means that you're receiving the recommendations. So the first one, and there's context for each, but I won't read that. The first recommendation is that USEAP recommends that the USBE develop an online toolkit for school administrators to better understand the needs of and ability to support special educators. And the reason they made that recommendation is because in all of that research, the number one thing that improves or that's correlated with retention is administrator support. So that was recommendation 1. Recommendation 2 is that USEAP recommends that the USBE budget IDEA funds for a competitive grant to LEAs to propose and implement innovative approaches to decrease the paperwork burden special education teachers experience when compliantly implementing the IDEA. And the reason for that recommendation is because the paperwork burden was their least favorite part of being a special ed teacher, according to all of that research. And then recommendation 3 is more broad. When the State Board of Education is considering proposed legislation to enhance educational supports for students in the state, all students, USEAP recommends that USBE apply an intentional and specific inquiry process to ensure the legislative action will support students with disabilities, just to ensure that students with disabilities are not left out when legislation is considered.
Okay, I'll just give you a quick rundown of what I thought. I think that I'd like to make we can receive this, right? We can make a motion to, because it's actually, okay. I would recommend that we are currently reviewing our leadership standards and to make sure that number 1 recommendation is strongly included in there. I don't know that that's a good word, but, right? Like, there are standards that reflect that
this recommendation.
Yep.
Sure. The leadership standards.
So I would, okay, so that's a motion I would make.
That the leadership
reflect
standards, the new
recommendation
leadership
1.
Standards reflect recommendation 1.
Okay. And then, yeah, well, we'll do that first, so. And then does anybody, any discussion to this? Okay. I'll make this motion that the new USBE leadership standards reflect recommendation 1. And those are still, we did public comment, they haven't come to us yet, so hopefully those can get
Or
modified.
could they reflect all 3? Could they reflect the survey, the special education? Because I think, teacher burnout is such a huge issue, and feeling like they don't have administrator support, and especially I've heard special ed teachers say they're overwhelmed with paperwork and maybe 27 students in a class, but it's not considered a full class because it's not 28, and that they don't have administrator support in the classroom. So
do you want me to adjust this so that it says leadership standards are reflective of the USEAP recommendations, so it's maybe a little broader?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or is that too broad? I don't.
You're going to see the leadership standards. So
I know.
yeah.
That's why I want to make sure that they're.
Yeah, because I really like all of these recommendations. I think they should be incorporated, and it should be training for administrators that they know they're expected to be in the classroom. Can they be doing the paperwork and filling in the reports on the special ed students more than the teachers?
Well, I just think if we made sure that there was some reflection coming from this recommendation, so. Okay, are you guys good with that? Okay, so the motion before us is that Sarah shares her sandwich with everyone. Okay. Okay, just didn't see it yet. All right. That the new USBE leadership standards are reflective of the USEAP recommendations. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any other discussion on any of these items? Do we need to put some I'm just looking at the recommendation 2. What can we do there? Is there some motion are we already working on that?
I am happy to work on that. This recommendation came in after I submitted our budget to OSEP because we have to do that we have to put it on our website in March so that it sits there for 2 months for public comment and then submit it in May. So this recommendation came after that, but I can set up the budget for us to be able to do that within. I've said many times before, if we make more than a 10% adjustment in any of the lines, we have to go back to OSEP. But we can look at the budget, and in one of the big categories, I can set this up.
Okay, so and one other possibility, if you were interested or someone in your department, I think we have money for research and development, innovative ideas, right? This is one of those places where I feel like we could be innovative and develop something that would be productive and kind of.
Oh, yeah, I can talk to Deputy Jones about that as well.
Yeah, that just might be a.
It would be.
Right, that would be innovative to develop something that would be beneficial. Yeah, so can you maybe look at that, and then I think that could come back to this committee probably, or I think you would have 3 of us that would probably be interested in signing on, and we could put it in finance, so it's not held up a long time. Okay. Any other comments? I'm just wondering if there's any other recommendations out of it. Okay, so the motion would be that the committee accept the USEAP recommendations recommendations in the memo titles.
It's supposed to be
Titled, yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. 2026 USEAP memo. Teacher recruitment and retention for consideration. And might I just add who USEAP is, just for the public? It's the Utah Special Education Advisory Panel that advises the board. So just a frame of reference there as we talk about acronyms sometimes. So, any additional discussion? Okay. So the motion before the committee is that the committee accept the USEAP recommendation in the memo titled 2026 USEAP Memo Teacher Recruitment and Retention for Consideration. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. And I'm looking for a final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn, and all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you.